Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablin.
Hello, and welcome to episode 85 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This episode of the QCMP is sponsored by Midwood Guitar Studio, Charlotte, North Carolina's own boutique guitar shop located in Plaza Midwood. Midwood Guitar Studio not only has the finest selection of boutique guitars, but familiar names like Fender, Martin, Taylor, True Rock, and many others. Whether it's a guitar, bass, amp, effects pedal, or a much-needed accessory, the knowledgeable and friendly staff at Midwood Guitar Studio will help guide you in the right direction for your next purchase. And Midwood Guitar Studio also has a luthier on staff for all your repair needs. Visit their website at midwoodguitarstudio.com or stop in to see their unique shop at 1517 Central Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. By the way, if you have a business and would like to become a sponsor of the podcast, like our friends at Midwood Guitar Studio, drop me a line at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com and I'll discuss all the information with you. Also, if you enjoy the podcast and want to find out more about me, stop by MatthewAblin.com. That's where you'll find links to my events calendar, performance groups, the latest podcast episodes, and a host of other information. This month on episode 85 of the QCMP, I'm pleased to be speaking with cover artist Matt Stratford. Matt is known for performing in many cover group configurations, as well as with his wedding group Chunky Daddy and his latest group, Buffett and Beyond. Matt Stratford, welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast.
What's up, buddy?
Nothing, man. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's actually the first time we've really sat and talked besides bathroom chatter.
Yes, I believe so. We're not supposed to tell people about the bathroom chatter, though. That's a private matter.
I saw you I think I met you for the first time where you were doing the Buffett and Beyond with our friend, mutual friend Tara Taylor.
Yep. We that's the first time we'd seen each other in person. I think we've been friends on social for quite a while. And we run in the same circles. Yeah. I know you play with John. Is that how you say his last name? Yeah. That guy. John C is what he said in my phone as. Yeah.
And it's funny when John mentions all these people he plays with, he's like, have you met this person? I'm like, the name, yes, but never met them in person. So
that's how it is.
And we'll get into the Buffett and Beyond thing later. Okay. I thought that was pretty cool. But let's get down to it, Matt. Are you originally from the Charlotte area?
No, I am from right outside of Washington, D.C., across the Maryland border, a little nothing town called Waldorf that I like to refer to as the armpit of America. It is, do you know the main strip in Mooresville there where it's just car dealerships and restaurants? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what the entire place I'm from is like.
Oh, wow.
It's basically an overflow area from Southeast D.C. Where the people who work uptown can't afford to live uptown. Right. So they go across the border and live in Maryland. We were about 30 minutes outside of D.C. So it was a commuter town. Okay. There was no industry at all. Just lots of bars, restaurants, dealerships, and stores and stuff like that. So,
what brought you to the Charlotte area?
When my first wife got pregnant, we decided we wanted to not raise our child up there.
Okay.
And if you know anything about the area, it kind of goes without saying as to why.
Right.
And so we decided to pick a place to move to. We picked North Carolina. We moved down here. My son was born. She hated it and took off, and we stayed.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. It's been great, though. It's been the best move ever for me. The music scene in Charlotte has embraced me in a way that I couldn't have imagined.
Right.
Like the abundance of work down here is great. There's so much work. Like different grades of work, some are high paying work, Absolutely. Some are not, but there's just so much work and it's great.
Well, we talked about it before we started recording, and when we got here around a similar time, I got here in 06, you said what, 08?
08. About 08.
And there wasn't that much here.
Not like it is now.
And I've said it a number of times on the podcast, and I think when we had gotten here, it was a smaller group of musicians who kind of owned the town and played and had all the places locked up. But what wound up happening eventually is that all of us new people who started moving here started making inroads in all the places that weren't locked up, that started to open as Charlotte started to grow years ago. And hence the older folks, the older guard, when those older places closed, they had no place to play. And I think they got locked out of there.
I noticed a lot of people the first 5 or 6 years I was here moved. Like they were playing here regularly and then they moved to a completely different place.
Wow.
Like when I first moved here, Dan Harvey was one of the big guitar players in the area. Fabulous guitar player.
Yeah.
Since this will be heard by others, I'll stop there as far as him as a person. But he's a fabulous guitar player, and one of the best I've ever seen. But he ended up moving to, I don't know, Chicago or something like that.
Wow.
But a ton of guys that I know that were in the scene when I first got here are no longer really part of it at all.
Wow.
And I assume maybe that's because some of that happened. When Buckhead changed,
and
all that stuff, that whole group of people. Woody's still around though. Woody?
No.
Drummer?
No.
Plays with Dave Haywood a lot.
Oh, yes.
David Woody,
Dave
Sunday
Woody,
Fun Day stuff.
There
Woody's still around, but even Dave doesn't play as much around here as he used to.
Wow.
So yeah, it's changed quite a bit. But with the microbreweries and all that stuff popping up now, there's so many more places to play.
Yeah. Well, that and begs what we were talking about earlier, bringing it back. It was like there's names we don't even know anymore.
Oh yeah.
We might be the old people on the scene now. It's like we've
sure
been
are.
here and there's a whole bunch of people and I'm like, wow, I don't know.
Yeah, we sure are the old dogs on there.
But you know what? That's in a way that's a good thing because we've got the city's grown a lot and at least we can say we've got a reputation for playing.
Yeah. And one of the other blessings that comes with that too is when I first got here, there were only a small handful of people that really helped me.
Right.
Kind of took me in a little bit. And I met them at some open mic nights and stuff like that, as you do when you first move to a new place.
Right.
But those people kind of took me in, but there wasn't a lot of it. A lot of it was still like very cutthroat. No one wanted to help each other. No one wanted to give anybody else any work. And now that I'm kind of the older guy, I can help people the way I wasn't helped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like there's a lot of people like Shannon Lee and Tanya Wood. There's a lot of people doing that kind of stuff right now where we're helping this next generation of musicians.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about their stories, but no one helped me do nothing when I got here.
I
just started hitting bars and hitting restaurants and talking to people and trying to get anything I could.
Yeah. That's kind of what I did. I got here and then I was like, I came from a classical guitar background. So when I moved to Charlotte, I wanted to start playing music. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do a rock band. So hence I went up meeting John, our mutual friend. So we got to do a band together. That band didn't work out. And then me and John decided we liked playing with each other. So we did the Matt and John acoustic duo. We did that for years. But to your point, when we did it, we weren't searching out open mics. We were just trying to play every restaurant, every bar we could. We'd made it. We got a friend of his to record us. We made a CD. We dropped it off at places when people were dropping off CDs.
Dropping off press kits.
Yep. And then slowly but surely it just, more places started to open in Charlotte and more places wanted to have live music. And it was just like, okay, good. You got a website. You're in, And it was like, all right, man.
Yeah. It used to be pulling teeth to get gigs.
Oh my gosh.
Before the days of the internet and social media being the way they are now. It was a different road for us older guys back then. And
to a thing, it still is in a certain way now, because if you don't have a website or you don't have a Instagram or something to show that you're playing or video, I don't think you're getting hired.
Yeah. I have been so fortunate. I hit a string of, I guess, just good fortune and good luck. And there have been, I don't know, maybe the last 7-8 years where I haven't had to really seek out as much work as, my name gets kind of thrown to somebody and they contact me.
Right.
And most of the new rooms I've played the last few years have been either somebody recommending me for it or a friend of mine called and asked me to fill in, and then the venue kept booking me after. So it's been a huge blessing for the last little while. I haven't had to really run the rat race and go look for the gigs nearly as much as I used to.
I hustle all the time, man.
I did for years. Yeah. For years. But I also, as I've gotten older and I started doing more in church and less in the secular world of music, which I'm not one or the other exclusively, but, but since I started down that road a little bit too, it's nice to not gig as much as I used to. I think the most I did in 1 year was maybe back in when I was about 31, 32. I think I did 290 shows.
Damn.
Yeah.
And what did you think of that?
I was tired. And for doing gigs like that, doing 250 plus a year for like 6 years straight, I ruined my voice.
Oh my gosh.
My voice is not a tenth of what it used to be.
Wow.
And I can still sing okay, I think, but it's not what it was. And I got sick a lot. I didn't take care of myself well. I was on the road a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing to step back.
That's a lot of gigs.
It was brutal.
Especially for sustained amount of time, a number of years.
Yeah. And that's back when a lot of shows were still 4 hours, which I'm so thankful that the Charlotte scene is starting to do a lot more 2 and 3 hour shows. For the longest time, it was always 4 hour everything.
Really?
When I first got here.
I want to find the person who established a 3 hour gig as the norm and kick them.
I know.
I think 2 hours is perfect.
Enough. Yeah.
2 hours is fine. You don't need 3 hours of music. I mean, it is taxing on your voice. To your point about doing those shows, a number of years ago, I don't mind saying, I was paying off my student loans, and I worked my butt off for like a year and a half to almost 2 years. But during a 1 year period, the most I ever played was 115 gigs. And to me, that 115 was Groundhog's Day. I would never want to play 3 and 4 gigs a week. Again.
I did it for so long.
Yeah, I could. I'm 250.
I would do 5, 6, 7, doubles on Saturdays.
That's crazy.
Sometimes 3 in one day if they were small enough.
And that's absolutely not good for your voice.
No,
absolutely
total burnout.
Not.
I have all kinds of issues with my voice now that I didn't before I did all that. But I was young and having fun and making money.
Right.
And I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of school.
Okay.
So to make the kind of money you can make as a musician, which we don't have to talk about on air, but the kind of money that's out there. I mean, I can't do that. I can't make that doing anything else. So you just dig and push and do what you can do.
You got to do the hustle, man.
Yeah.
You got to do the hustle.
But the last 4 or 5 years have been super good to me, super kind to me.
Yeah.
And work has been abundant and well paying. And I'm at the point where I haven't had to take gigs.
Right.
Which is a change. Because when I was younger, you just take, you're doing this for a living. I don't have a day job. You just take whatever you can get.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you complain about it. You go, why am I only making $150 here? But you take it because it's what you need.
Well, I say the same thing with my day gig, which most of the listeners already know. I mean, I'm a music educator during the day, and I spent a lot of time when I was younger figuring out how am I going to make money and make a living doing this as a musician.
Yeah.
And I've taught guitar for years, and gigged and all the things that go into it. And then finally, when the music education thing came around, I was like, I'm still doing music. That's going to make me happy. And then the teaching lessons and the gigging it in the evening, that's side. That's all side, which is great. And it's great to have that ability to have that side hustle, but it's even better for me have that pension and benefits and things like that. I mean, if you can have that, I think I saw, Rick Rubin, and he did it was a little snippet, and I thought it was an interesting thing that he said. He said, your passion does not have to be what you do for a living. What you do for a living can fuel your passion, though you could take the money and pour it into whatever you're doing, it could be freaking bird watching.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a corporate job and you come home on the weekends and because you have a good corporate job, that money enables you to buy, books and videos and pictures and cameras and everything you need to do bird watching. I mean, that makes you happy. You do that, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing.
It is. It's mixing the passion with the living.
Yeah.
Is a hard thing. It takes some of the joy out of it when you have to do gigs you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Playing styles of music that you don't necessarily want to play.
Yes.
But at the same time, God gave me a skill set where I can provide a living for myself.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm going to do it and I'm going to be thankful for it and grateful for it every day. My brother is an electrician, and I remember times where I was getting home at 2 a.m. from a gig, and 2 hours later he's getting up going to work to go dig footings under a building or something, and I'm like, I don't have to do that. Life could be worse.
And he probably looked at you at the reverse, is like, I don't have to come home at 2 o'clock in the morning, man. I'm chilling.
Yeah. It's a give and take, but it's a lifestyle that a lot of people who aren't full-time musicians don't understand.
Yes.
There's just so much to it. And in my close circle of friends, my close group of friends, we all kind of jokingly will say all the time, like, gosh, I wish I could go back and do it over and have a day job and this be what I do on the side. But when I was 21 and I was first starting to do it, I thought, I still thought I was going to get a record contract and do all this, that, and the other. And,
the world has changed, man.
Oh yeah. It certainly has. the music world has changed so drastically with the streaming.
Oh my God.
Streaming has changed everything. That's why all these old dogs are going back out on tour again, all these old ancient bands, because they're not making the money off record sales anymore.
Yeah. Well, they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? Who was the guy? Maybe you saw the video. Is it Frankie Valli? Went out on tour. He's like 91 and he's out on stage and he's lip syncing.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Oh, and it was just like, wait, why is this poor old man out there at 91? Does he really need the money? Do his people?
That makes you wonder. Yeah. Like what, how did he not take care of his money? Cause he made some money.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you see all these old guys going back out on tour again.
And I think some of them do love it.
Oh yeah.
But I think some of them, I think it's just kind of like, with being a musician, it's a grind.
Oh yeah.
On a certain level. Unless you're maybe the Rolling Stones or a huge act, and you're staying in nice hotels and stuff. I mean, I feel bad for some of these 80s groups that were not the top level. Let's just say they were D-level bands.
Yeah.
My buddy went and saw, I won't even name some of the bands he's gone to see. He goes and sees them and he's like, man, I just felt bad. These guys were like 60 in their mid to late 60s and they're playing a club on a Wednesday night and there's like 5 people there.
Yeah.
And coming out to see them and like they've got like a high school education, which is cool. It's fine. I'm not knocking anybody, but that's all they have.
And this is what they're stuck with.
And this is what I'm stuck with because I was with this band at that point. I never tried to develop this.
Yep.
For my
and that's always been my greatest fear is to be, 70 years old, still trying to get bar gigs and feed myself.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to be in that place. If you want to play when you're that age, awesome. But no one wants to have to do that.
Yeah, but the difference for you or I is being a local musician. I think you get more. It might be better in a sense than trying to be like a national touring act, because if you're a national touring act, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
You might say, "Oh, I got to sell this many tickets. I'm going to make this much money. It's going to, I got to travel there." You might just break even on a tour.
Yeah.
And then being a local musician, you'd be like, "I'm packing up my stuff. I'm going to play this brewery tonight. I know I'm going to make $300."
Yeah. You can count on it.
You can count on it, and you book your calendar.
That's how it goes.
You take like a mutual friend of ours, Mike Rossi.
Yep.
See, Mike, he's got his music school and he's got his little touring group, regional touring group that he does with Chicago Rewired. Yeah.
He's got the Kids in America thing does some traveling as well. Weren't they just in, they were just in Florida or something?
Yeah. I think that's part of Mike's route that he does. But I'm just saying, Mike is not a world famous musician, but he's a smart local musician who just, all right, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And he developed it for himself.
And as a musician, if you diversify,
oh God, yeah,
that's key to being able to make a living at it without a day job.
Yeah,
is being able to diversify. I've done recording stuff. I did some voiceover stuff for some parody songs for Belk a number of years back. I did about 6 of them in a row, and just in the home studio. Then they sell you money,
Yeah.
So you diversify. I taught for music and arts for a while as well.
Okay,
and don't love teaching. I don't. I always I've gone back to it several times and I'll spend a few years doing it and then I'll get tired of it and go, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. And
then 10 years later, I'll come back and go, I want to do this again.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, I go, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't love to teach privately.
Yeah.
My soon to be ex-wife is, school teacher. So I got involved with some of the stuff over at the school, just helping out the music teacher here and there and stuff like that, and coming in and bringing my guitar and goofing off with the kids. And I love group stuff, but one-on-one lessons, it's murder, because most of these kids now, and I'm not saying anything negative about the kids or the parents.
Sure.
It's just a fact of life that they're involved in so many things.
Yes.
They don't have time. And if they do have time, they don't have the motivation to practice.
Right.
So you got little Timmy sitting there for the 3rd week in a row on page 3, and his mom's going, you did page 3 the last 3 weeks. I'm like, well, until he learns page 3, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I can't teach him C until he learns A and B first.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be.
You say that, and I just had a conversation for last month's podcast, episode 84 with Nathan Harris. And Nathan and I were talking about teaching, and he was talking about a similar thing. It's like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, you, as a teacher, you are waiting for that student or students to come in that are just really want to play. Yep. And you're like, yes, I finally got one.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
But the 4 in between each one of those.
Yes. Oh, I didn't practice this week.
Murder.
I didn't do this. And you're just like, oh. And then even adults. I mean, I've have some adults who come in and they want to play, and with their life, you know, and their own kids, and, you know, maybe they got 20 minutes to play for the whole week, and they come back in and they're doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah. It's tough. But when you do get that 1 or 2 students that really go after it, it's a beautiful thing. And it's wonderful. If I had a roster of students who all worked hard, I would love to teach. In
a certain way, man, I just retired from guitar teaching last year. I decided that I didn't want to do this anymore. I had done it for 25 years, and I was just like, I've always taught guitar, like since graduate school or right before graduate school. And then afterwards, just, that was how I made a living. Like, there was a point in time where when I lived in Cleveland, I taught like 70 students a week. And that's all I did. I didn't gig. I just taught.
That's a lot.
Yeah, man.
When I lived in Maryland, the most I had was about 45.
Yeah.
And that felt like a lot to me.
Yeah.
But, and I had a split level house I was renting, so it had a separate entrance on the back. So it was a whole setup little music school thing, you know? So the parents could park on the side and the kids could come in the back. But yeah, 45, and that was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a whole lot.
And it's kind of it's one of those things where it's like a machine. You just next, let's go.
And part of the reason I think because I taught for a long time when I was young. Yeah. And then I stopped when I moved here for quite a while. And I think part of that was, that when I started gigging more, I didn't have the time to dedicate to being a teacher.
Right.
And I felt like if someone's paying me, I should have a proper plan, lesson plan, whatever you want to call it, for each kid, you know? And I got to the point where I was kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And I just felt wrong about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore. If I'm not going to dedicate the time to being prepared. But it gets discouraging when one student out of your 9 for the evening actually practiced.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, if I have something for that one student, the other ones aren't going to practice anyway. It's terrible. I shouldn't say that stuff out loud, but it goes through all of our minds.
Truth. It's the inside baseball.
It is.
A lot of people don't know about, you know, being a musician, the things that go through your head. But you know what? It's very similar to anything else. I mean, if you have a desk job and you go through it every day, I'm sure there's things that people who work a similar desk job would talk about.
Yeah.
You know, oh, remember when we came in and you come in, you got to click the clock and you got to do this and you got to do that and everything. You know, sometimes it's just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Although when I first started teaching, I felt bad thinking back, I felt bad for the students that I started teaching because I didn't know what I didn't know. And at a certain point, I had clicked in my head, I need to do this. And I developed this formula for teaching students so that everybody was going to learn this, and this is how they were going to learn this, and this is how we're going to learn this. And one thing that would flow into the next and this. And I even developed a set of songs that everybody learned because in those songs, they learned certain techniques to play.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that musicians often find themselves, in my opinion, in my experience, doing is teaching when they don't know how to teach.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to teach kind of on the job at your first teaching job.
You do.
And then after a while you go, now give me a new student who wants to practice, because I'll do a lot better now than I did the first 2 years that I taught. So I can totally relate to that for sure.
And I mean, to tell you the truth, it's one of those things is like, I think about if I retire at some point from school system, there's no way I'm going to make that same money at a side job that I would sitting down and teaching guitar. I mean, you know, teaching guitar, you can make anywhere from $30 to $60 an hour.
Yep.
You know, just teaching lessons. And that's a lot of money for a musician.
And if you get with a busy storefront or whatever, or if you have a good marketing on your own, you don't have to really find students. When I first started at not Guitar Center, Music and Arts, which is owned by Guitar Center, or owns Guitar Center.
I think they're a subsidiary. They're part of it.
But when I first started there, it took me, within a month I had a full schedule.
Yeah.
Like they were ready for me. They were begging for, we got students lined up, man. So within 2 weeks of working there, my Monday night had already filled up to 9 in a row from 3:30 to 8. And then I was like going, well, maybe I hope somebody doesn't show up so I can get a break. get a break.
Yeah, you got to.
Because 4.5 hours straight is a lot. That's 9 students in a row is a long time.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to build in that break and be like, I'm going to teach for 2 hours and then I need a half hour just to kind of get my head together. It's a lot. I mean, teaching guitar, but like anything else, it's a skill set and you got to get paid for that certain skill set, and people got to understand that's the way it works.
And that's where it gets tricky as a church musician.
How's that?
Because you have to kind of, in business, especially as musicians, we hear this all the time, but I'm sure it's in all business. But as performers, you and I hear this all the time. Know your worth. Stick to your worth.
Sure.
Don't take less than what you think you're worth, kind of thing.
Right.
Set that bar for yourself. And in church, it's a completely different animal, because then you're mixing, well, I'm a Christian, and it's my job to give back to the church and give to the community, but I still need to be compensated because this is my profession.
Right.
But then it gets real tricky.
Yeah.
It's, and it can be a tough road to navigate sometimes.
Should I be making this much money?
Right. Or should I be making more? Because realistically, what I'm doing for them, if they hired somebody else, would cost twice what I'm doing for them. But, but it can't all be for the money at the church level. It's got to be because you want to be doing it as well.
And that's a sticky thing, because it's, not to get into the politics of religion.
No, we can.
It's just funny to me.
I'm a Christian, but I'm wide open. You can talk to me about anything you want. And I will surprise the living daylights out of you if you go down some of those avenues that are dangerous.
Yeah.
I will, because I don't believe what a lot of other Christians believe.
Well, I am old school. Like, being from New York, I was old school Catholic church. I go with a priest and you're up and down, you're on your knees doing anything. And it always just seemed to me, it was like, the Catholic church has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when people tell you they can't pay you for this because it's for the church and for God.
Oh yeah.
I just kind of like, how much money you guys have? How much real estate? How many holdings do you have that you say you can't do this? And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum is the thing that always bothers me with, seeing some of the pastors who are up there and they're making $1 million, going and saying stuff for God, but yet they're, running around with, Mercedeses.
Yeah. There's a lot. So that's a conversation for another 4-hour podcast we can have one day. But there's a lot. There's just a lot. The general public who are angry with the church in today's world have every right to be. I say we because I am part of the church universal, the large capital C church. Sure. We have done it to ourselves. We've made a lot of mistakes and we've rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and we need to do a better job. But yeah, I hear you, man.
There's just a lot of things, but to the point is, pay the musicians.
Yeah.
If there are people providing the value.
Right.
To bring people into the church, then you should be paying them because you want the best quality people to bring people in.
I've worked at churches before where you have a $10,000 mixing console, and all these lights and fog machines, and everything is top of the line wireless Sennheiser. Everything's just crazy expensive, and they only want to pay their worship leader $12,000 a year. It's like, well, we don't have the money. Well, yeah, because you spend it on a $10,000 mixing console that you don't need.
Yeah. And nobody knows how to use.
Right. And I'm up there running it from an iPad because the tech team doesn't know how to use the board.
Yeah. Because somebody probably sold you.
But churches are politics now, and that's unfortunate. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a political safe haven where you can go be whoever you are supposed to be and meant to be, and whoever God designed you to be. But that's a side road we don't need to go down too much.
Well, it's like anything else. It's all there's politics involved in everything. Yeah.
And the more we grow as a country, the bigger online presences and media presences get, the more the disagreements turn into things that shouldn't be as hateful as they are.
Yeah. I agree, man.
I look at the church very much like the landscape of politics nowadays. We've turned into a society where if you're not with me, you're against me. And that is just simply not true.
And pick a side.
Yeah. I think that you can't see this, people who are listening, but I have my hands up about a couple feet apart. And I think the far left and the far right are yelling at each other, and the rest of us are somewhere in here going, will you all just shut up so we can find out what's true and what's not?
I just don't want to pay this much for eggs.
Right.
I want
Somebody
to go
just tell
to
me
the
what's
grocery
actually
store.
happening.
Yeah.
But it's just, but That's everything in life, right? The loudest people, the squeaky wheel, right? That's why that saying exists.
Everything happens, you know? Yeah. And he's like, what? And you realize it more when you get older. I think when you're younger, there's a lot of things that you don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
And there could be anything involved in the music industry, and it could be life, and it could be politics. And you get older and you have experience, and you've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean you've seen everything in the world.
Right.
But you've seen some stuff, and now you understand the way things they work. I have a good buddy of mine, Tom, and we always talk about it. And it's, I always say, the veil's been pulled back, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So like in regards to music, we talk about, our music education and going to school for studying classical guitar. And it's like, it's a machine. These guys, these teachers, and I'm not bad mouthing anybody. A lot of them are wonderful people, but they're feeding the machine. How do I get people to come into my program that's going to, you know, study and want to do this stuff that they do? And same thing with church music or something.
Anything.
Once the veil gets pulled back, you're like, oh, this is not the way I thought it was. This is the way it works. Got it. You know?
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with the pastor of my church that I serve right now. And we were talking about that. I said, you know, you felt called to be a pastor. She was getting some crap about some things that were happening in the church. Well, I guess I'll just say it. She gets pooped on a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Because she's a preacher, not an administrator.
Right.
And I told her, I said, the United Methodist Church needs to start giving y'all business classes along with that Master of Divinity.
Yeah.
Because you guys are called to preach. You're called to help people. Then they put you in an office setting and expect you to flourish. Well, of course you're not. That's not what you were called to do.
Yeah.
You felt like you wanted to share the gospel, and instead now you're writing reports and doing spreadsheets. And that's not what you even thought you were going to do. So, but that's life, right? We get into things. I never thought I'd be doing some of the stuff I do.
Yeah.
As a musician, you know.
Look at it with modern music. You went from writing and performing your own music to now you got to do social media. We all have a studio at home to learn. You got to learn how to use that. You've got to be posting your own social media content. Maybe you've got to be figuring out photographs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You've got to hustle the gigs for yourself that maybe you didn't in the past.
Yeah. And then when you're a band owner or leader, someone like Mike Grossi or myself with my wedding band, then you're also dealing with, you know, HR, everything that goes along with HR.
Yeah.
You're dealing with people's schedules. You're dealing with taxes. You're dealing with 1099s. You know, you're dealing with all that stuff too.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, and we have an advertising budget where we pay places like The Knot and Wedding Wire and these places to get us out there. And it's a whole machine. You're right.
Yeah. Let's get into it, man. So you're doing, we've had this whole conversation before we even got into the music stuff, right, really. Man. So let's backtrack. How did you get into music?
Let's see. Well, I've always done music kind of just as a hobby.
Yeah.
Like my dad was a guitar player.
Okay.
Not a very good one. He'd be the first one to tell you that. God rest his soul. I don't have a problem, Dad, if you're listening. You were not a very good guitar player. But he would tell you that too. So, but he taught me some chords early on.
Okay.
He was a 60s Southern California guy.
All
really into like Carly Simon, a lot of the, you know, Carole King, James Taylor, a lot of the folky singer-songwriter stuff. And he just had his little guitar and he played a little bit. And, you know, when you're a kid, you want to be like Dad. Yeah. So Dad got me a guitar and he taught me a couple things and I didn't take it very seriously until I was about 15 or 16.
Okay.
And then I got into a garage band for the first time.
Okay.
Got my first electric guitar, got into a garage band that had some moderate local success. Actually played some paid gigs before the age of 18, which I've learned now is kind of rare for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But did that and then just kind of went from there. I'm mostly self-taught. After that, my father taught me basic, like not caged, but basic open position chords.
Sure.
And that's all he knew.
Right.
And then I just started playing all the time and did the original band thing for a little while. We did a couple small tours. I parted ways with them right before they ended up with D-Side Records, which was who Trust Company was with. If you ever listen to any older rock stuff, they did Warped Tour a couple times and stuff like that. After I'd left the band.
Did you do any guitar lessons, or were you, for the most part, self-taught besides what your dad showed you?
Mostly self-taught, outside of what my dad taught me. When I got to college, I took 1 semester of guitar.
Okay.
And then learned basic bar chord shapes and a pentatonic scale.
All right.
In that semester. And and then just took off from there. With the internet now, if you want to know something, you can.
Yeah.
I hate to say that as someone who teaches or used to teach guitar to someone who teaches.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you have a proficient level of music theory knowledge, you can learn things on your own.
There is,
like if you understand basic theory, you can watch somebody and figure out what's happening.
Oh yeah. That's the one thing. I mean, I took lessons for years and for me, I was that type of person who like, show me how to do it, explain it to me, and I'll run with it. I was not the type of person like, I'm going to figure this all out on my own, but you get to a point with music where if you get to a certain proficiency level, like you're saying, there's a lot of stuff which just comes easier. Like I started playing Middle Eastern oud a couple of years ago. Wow. So I found this dude online. I think he lives in Japan, Naveed, and I take Zoom lessons with him. And so we're doing a lesson the other day and he showed me the stuff and I'm just like reading the music and I'm playing. And I said to him, man, do you have a lot of students who don't read music? He's like, yeah, I've got a few. And I said, it makes it so much easier to read music to be able to do this.
Yeah. I'm not as strong a reader as I used to be.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I used to sit for vocal and piano. I used to sit in a practice room for, hours every day like everybody else did.
Yeah.
But I never kept up with it as much.
Okay.
I mean, I read if you handed me something right now, I'd say, give me 20 minutes to look at this before you come back in the room.
Sure.
Because it's just a skill I don't use anymore. But learning theory as a whole, like in a nutshell, the whole idea of chord progressions and scale degrees.
Right.
What is a flat seven? You can look when you get to a point where you can look across the stage at somebody and shout numbers and shout cadences and stuff. It just the world opens up.
Yes.
In a very different way.
Yeah.
I always told my students, I said, guitar, they would always say, what's the hardest, you get this right, what's the hardest instrument to learn? I said, they're all hard if you learn them well.
Yes.
Like if you're good at it, they're all difficult. But I would say guitar is one of the toughest ones to get started with, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Because your hand is not used to doing that if you're not used to doing that.
Yeah.
And your fingers are not trained with the proper amount of pressure. Because you and I play now, we don't even think about how hard we're pushing down. But when you're first starting, you're thinking about how hard you have to push down. Yeah. And it's just a different thing. But I always tell them as well, you can get to a basic proficient level on the guitar a lot faster if you work hard than a lot of other instruments, because we're looking at shapes early on. You might be teaching individual notes as well, but you're also looking at chord shapes for a lot of these students early on. And if you can learn shapes, you can learn guitar to a proficient level with honestly not much more than that. Same with scales on the guitar. If you know where to start and where to finish, it's more about shapes when you're in the moment playing. At least for me, when I'm in the moment playing, I'm not thinking, I'm in E flat. I'm thinking, where am I on the fingerboard?
Sure.
And how do I get to where I'm going? And I'm not even thinking about
And it's muscle memory.
Notes,
you're just like, I'm going to G, I'm going to here.
But one of the things I tell you, I've always told people, and I told a friend of mine this, he's the drummer for the Jimmy Buffett band that we started. His name's Tyler Crawford. He's an awesome young guy. I've known him since he was in youth group at a church I was working for when he was like 15.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a fifth Sunday, those 4 times a year, he would play and the adult drummer would take the Sunday off.
Cool.
And we've kind of kept in touch. His father ended up being my son's Boy Scout leader, and we just kept in touch with the family. So this is his first professional, official professional gig, being in a pro band. And I told him from the beginning, I used to tell him all the time, I said, Tyler, just play with people who are better than you.
Yeah.
Just always play with people who are better than you. Like if you have to do something for money, obviously do it for money. But if you get the choice to play with somebody who's better than you, always take that choice.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's the goal of being a musician. You want to play with people who are at least on the same level as you, or better.
Yeah. Most of the stuff I've learned in my life has not been from lessons or books or YouTube. It has been from standing next to somebody on stage that could just put me to shame.
Yeah.
And hanging on every note they're playing going, wow, that's amazing. And then taking it home and going, how do I do that?
Music is just a whole different animal when it comes to that kind of stuff, because you have to be humble.
You do. You know Jeff Jones?
No.
He's the guitar player for 20 Ride, that Zach Brown tribute.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic guitar player. In my opinion, I mean, from what I've seen, we just talked about how we don't know a lot of the current people who are out there gigging, but from the ones I know, I'd put him top 3 or 4 in the region. He's fabulous, just fabulous. He played with Super Glide for a long time.
Yeah.
Now he's doing the Zach Brown stuff. He can play any style. He used to play guitar for me sometimes in the Matt Stratford band years and years ago. And I remember the first couple times we worked together, we were on stage and he's just ripping a solo. And then he would look at me and go, "You take one." And I'm going, like shaking my head, like, no. And he's like, no, you take one. He just stopped playing. He'd go, "Your turn." And it's like, good players will force you. Yeah. Good players will force you to keep up. Or you'll fail, and then you'll get embarrassed enough not to fail again. So you'll come back ready to go.
And you don't have to be the greatest lead player, man. I mean, if you could put in some nice stuff that sounds good. I mean,
I'm definitely more of a melodic player than a chops player, for sure.
I can do a little bit of that, but I play an acoustic guitar mostly on gigs. Yeah. I'm not trying to shred. I'm just trying to play a good, nice melody, do a blues, add some stuff, and make it sound good. I mean,
a lot of times when I'm playing acoustic with a looper or something, I'll even just quote the song I'm playing.
There you go.
Like, for those of you listening don't know what I'm talking about, I'll play Drift Away.
Yeah.
You know, give me the beat, boys. And when I come on the guitar, I'll go da 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 da. I'll play back
playing the melody. Yeah.
That stuff can really just make songs in my opinion, more well-rounded and received well. Everybody loves seeing a guitar player ripping and shredding. But, you know, if you're playing a gig in a restaurant or a bar, people are eating dinner.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to go simple, but
it's a different animal being that guy.
It is.
You know, than playing on I haven't played in a band situation like where I'm playing big stuff. I mean, I have my group Longleaf and we do trios or a quartet occasionally. And we did right at the start of the pandemic and before the pandemic. But I still played acoustic. It was an acoustic based group as opposed to like, I'm bringing my electrics. I haven't played electric in a band in, my gosh, years.
Well, we need to put something on the books and fix that then.
No, man, I don't want to.
I'd say being a guitar player who was a novice, in my opinion, early on in my career, playing electric guitar in a band with another electric guitar player taught me a lot about how to stay in my lane and how to do things. It's like playing with a piano player.
Yeah.
Like if you're a piano player and a guitar player doing a duo, the piano player's got to keep his arms in. You don't want him going all over the place.
Sure.
Because the frequency ranges and stuff. You want to make sure things stick out. So that's one of the funny parts about being the only guitar player in the wedding band is I'm ended up playing a bunch of cowboy chords the most of the time because that's where
what you need.
The guitar is needed, is in that octave, in that range.
And the other thing is, depending on the group or format that you're playing in, dictates how you play. Like if you're playing a solo acoustic gig, you're strumming a lot more. You're trying to fill space. You're trying to make the sound bigger than it is. If you're an electric guitar player in a 5-piece group, you don't need to play every second.
You don't need to be so busy.
You know, and you don't need to fill everything. And that's another thing. Like, I mean, just playing electric guitar, dude, I don't know if I can go back and do it. Like I could fiddle on it and I got amps and stuff in my studio and I'm happy to play. I don't know if I'd want to, you know, I don't know if I'd want to be, it's a whole nother animal for me.
Oh yeah. It's a very different mindset too when you're playing.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done it in years. So it's like, I don't explain it. Having not done it in so long, like I almost gave up electric guitar as soon as I started college, started playing acoustic classical because I was just, that's it. It's a whole different thing, man. And I haven't played solid body in so long in that situation that I'm like, man, how do I turn up? How do I do this? What do I do? Like, I don't have to worry about a knob, you know?
Yeah, the little inflections and stuff. I'd say what gets me is if I play too many acoustic gigs in a row on a regular acoustic, because I use a hybrid a lot of times too. So
I've seen it. What are you playing?
It's a Crafter SA.
Okay.
It's like a UK version of a Taylor T5, but like a third of the price.
Gotcha.
But it sounds great. I love the thing.
Yeah.
But it's got a P90 in the neck.
Okay.
With the piezo or piezo or whatever you want to call it in the bridge.
Yeah.
So I can get the acoustic tone and loop it and then flip it forward and get that P90 on the neck pickup.
Okay.
Almost like a jazz kind of sound to play leads over top of it. But what I find myself doing is if I end up playing a regular acoustic too many days in a row and then I go to an electric, I am over strumming and over gripping the heck out of the guitar. The intonation is terrible because I'm pulling slightly because I'm used to that big Martin neck.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden I got a little Stratocaster in my hand and it just doesn't.
You're like, what the?
Yeah. And I'm like, why is my guitar going out of tune? The third song and I'm going, no, your guitar's not going out of tune. You're overplaying the heck out of this thing right now. Settle down, Stratford.
It's a different animal.
Yeah. It's just such a more delicate thing.
It's amazing when you have to be able to judge format that you're playing and what you're doing, and you've got to adjust your playing accordingly. It's always interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right, so backtrack a little bit. So you were playing that band, the cover band, and then you split from the cover band. Is that when you moved down to Charlotte?
Oh no, that was original. Okay. Then I started doing covers acoustic. Okay. A buddy of mine named Jeff, from high school and college, we started a little duo because we realized somebody was going to pay us $100 a piece to play covers for 3 hours.
Always a good
and
thing.
We were 21 and we were like, this is the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life. And then they were like, we're going to give you free beer too. And we said, I'm sold. This is what I want to do forever. So we started just doing that just for money.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any direction at the time. When I was in high school, I was being scouted by Notre Dame and a couple other places to play baseball. And then I hurt myself really badly. And I didn't have any direction. I just kind of floated around. You know, the music teacher at school was like, you know, I can hook you up with an audition for University of Maryland, Baltimore. And I ended up auditioning for another scholarship that would have let me go to any school, any state school, tuition free. But I ended up picking UMBC. But yeah, it was kind of like an afterthought. Like, what do I do now? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I thought I was going to play baseball in college. And then now that's not happening. So yeah, I gravitated toward music because I always sang in like chorus and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great.
But I wasn't serious about music at all until I got to that age. I didn't even learn how to read until I was 16 at all.
But you've always been singing too.
I know. I'd been in all-state choir like 4 times by the time I even learned how to read music.
That's one thing I didn't do.
I had no idea what was going on. I would just look at it and go, the note goes up. All right, the note goes up 2 notes. Okay, well, then that's where I'll go.
I didn't start singing until I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
I mean, I'm jealous of people who've been singing for years.
Well, like I say, you see where it got me. My voice is all destroyed. But yeah. But yeah, so I did that for a while, the acoustic thing, because I was like, this is great. You know, and not to go too much into my past, but I spent some time where I was homeless for a little while when I was young, a young adult. And it was a quick, easy way to make money with a skill set that I kind of already had.
Yeah.
Because I could already play a little bit.
Okay.
I could sing a little bit. And at that point, it was a matter of just, okay, let me learn some songs.
Yeah.
And when you're that age, the songs you're learning from my generation are things like Wonderwall and 3 a.m. And, you know what I mean? They're not difficult songs.
Yeah.
I learned one Dave Matthews song and I'm like, look at this. This is amazing. I can play this. Everything else is C, G, and D and E minor, you know?
Right.
But, so yeah, you learn a song list and we had one of those big books, you know?
Yeah.
With the slide-in pages.
Yes.
You know? And they were all alphabetical order. Before iPads, children, if you're listening.
Yes.
We had to rough it. We had these books that were about 5 inches thick that we used to carry around music stands.
Yes.
But yeah, it kind of grew from there. And before I knew it, I was in a situation where I had dropped out of school.
Okay.
And I didn't really have much going on in my life. I didn't have a place to live and I didn't, know what was going on. And I said, well, I can go back to school or I can get a day job, or at this age, I'm already making this amount of money playing 4 gigs a week.
Sure.
Why don't I just keep doing this? This is awesome.
There you go.
And that's kind of how it happened. And I've had those moments like we talked about earlier through life where I'm going, gosh, I wish I'd gone back and finished school or got a day job with insurance, and a pension and stuff like that.
Sure.
But at this point, 20 years in, that's where I am.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing.
But I'm not going to trade it. I wouldn't trade it if I could now. It's honestly, it's an amazing life. It gives me the freedom to do the things I want to do without having a day job. If I want to just take off for a week later in the year and go on a trip, I don't have to worry about sick leave. I just don't book anything for that week.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing. And when my son was little, he had all kinds of medical stuff.
Okay.
So I got to be a stay-at-home dad in a sense because I only worked at night, doing gigs at night. So it was a beautiful thing. I got to really raise my child like a mother would at home.
That's wonderful.
Before he got to school age, and I got to do that every day. I was exhausted because I was playing at places like Galway Hooker until 2 in the morning. But you get home and it's like all day long, just being able to lounge around in your sweatpants, hang out with your kid all day. And it was a beautiful thing. And it was the biggest blessing ever. But then when he got to school age, then it flipped a little bit because I didn't see him nearly as much because then I would be leaving to go to work at night and he'd been in school all day. So there have been blessings and not so good things that go along with it. But it's been a heck of a ride. I've been able to do some things I never thought I would get to do. I've toured Europe twice.
Wow.
I got to play at Obama's inauguration when it was here in Charlotte for the DNC. And then we were supposed to play because I'm not partisan on my money, by the way. If you have green money, I will take it. Political people out there, if you need a concert, just ask. We were scheduled to play for Trump's inauguration here before it got moved down to Florida. His first term. So I've been able to do some amazing things.
Was that just doing solo acoustic, or was that with a band?
That one was going to be with the band, with my wedding band. We were going to play a media after
What's
party.
the name of your wedding band?
Chunky Daddy.
Chunky Daddy. Okay, cool.
Go to chunkydaddy.com to check us out. We always joke on stage. We say, don't go to chunkydaddy.net. That's a website you want nothing to do with. It's not safe for women, children, or old people. Stay away from chunkydaddy.net. But yeah, so we were supposed to do that. The first one for Obama's inauguration that I did get to do was wild. It was me. I was opening, then it was chairman of the board, and then it was Biz Markie, the old rapper.
Biz Markie, yeah.
I'm like, that's the most odd bill I've ever heard in my life.
That's great.
Matt Stratford, Biz Markie, and chairman of the board. But it was a wild time.
That's awesome.
But I've gotten to do so many cool things. You know, I've gotten to do some stuff at PNC. You know, I've gotten to do some stuff. Let's see, what year was that? Maybe 17, 18. We got to do 4th of July at Kenan Stadium at UNC.
Okay.
So we were on the 50-yard line on a stage, like a stadium show, in front of 25,000 people.
Wow.
Before the fireworks started. We played a 2-hour set before the fireworks.
That's fantastic.
And we closed with Sweet Caroline.
Yeah.
Because we're in
whole stadium
in
singing.
UNC, right?
Yeah.
So you Sweet Caroline, and then you hear 25,000 people. Bah, bah, bah. It was amazing.
Oh, man, that's
so
great.
cool. When we were doing sound, I'd never done anything close to that size at the time. When we were doing sound check, I just remember hearing like the sound bouncing all around off the empty seats and everything in the stadium. I'm like, this is going to be terrible. But it was so cool. It was so cool. And then they had me sing the national anthem, and when I said the final, in the home of the brave, they shot the fireworks up behind me, up in the air. And then when the fireworks were going on, they allowed me to run up in the stands and grab my son, who was 10 at the time, and bring him down. So we were on the 50-yard line watching the fireworks together.
That's awesome,
it was such a cool thing. That's when Dave Lickert was still in the band with us. He's the guy that plays for Kids in America with Mike Rossi. The keyboard, he was our original keyboard player.
All right.
Kids in America and Chunky Daddy started the same year.
Okay.
And Dave was in both bands. And it was kind of just, he was kind of waiting to see who started getting gigs first. and old Mike got gigs before Matt did. So, and I love Dave. He's a great dude. But, it became where we kept having conflicts over and over.
Sure.
So we just had to find somebody else. But
so with the wedding band, how are you doing all those showcases and stuff?
No, we did some stuff early on.
Okay.
But we found it was much more financially, how do I say it? It was much more cost effective. Let's say that. Much more cost effective to do online marketing rather than in person.
That's the truth.
We've had so much more success with Wedding Wire or The Bash or these, the Knot, KNOT, the websites that specialize in weddings. Like Zola is a new one that we're on now.
I might pick your brain about that later, man.
Yeah, I mean, it costs though. Well, I mean, we spend about $5,000 a year on marketing.
See, a number of years ago, I was playing with my friend Denise, violinist, and Dee's awesome, Dee Gorski, and we were doing a group called 10-String Theory. So it was just me and her doing violin and guitar, and we did ceremony, and then we would do cocktail hours if they wanted a cocktail hour. But what wound up happening is we started realizing we were having to do these showcases. And man, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound awful. They're a scam. They charge you $1,000 to come in, set up your stuff in the hopes that you're going to get a gig. And for what we were charging for, let's just say if you just got a ceremony, I mean, you'd have to get like 3 or 4 ceremonies just to kind of break. And you're like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I'd rather us spend the $400 and whatever a month or so that we do on internet advertising.
Yeah.
And then we get the 20 or so gigs a year, and we build into our price overhead enough to take off the top and pay back
for the advertising.
Yeah. Or in the case that we did this year, we sat down and we looked at all my business partners, my sax player and I, we own the brand together. We sat down and looked at the books together over lunch and said, all right, these are the gigs we got. This is how much they pay. We're going to take X amount from this one, X amount from this one, X amount from this one, and that'll cover our whole year.
Right.
For marketing. So, but the first 4 or 5 years were not like that.
Of course.
We were putting money out of pocket quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to a good point.
It's always a slow build when you're putting stuff together. Yeah. It takes a while for it to happen. I mean,
we've got 3 things right now. 2 I'm allowed to say, 1 I'm not yet for the Buffett and Beyond band. And we just launched a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I came down to your
and
video
we've already
session,
got a few things.
That's
lined
fantastic,
up. So
man.
then everybody in the band's kind of, hurry up and wait. And I'm going, just give it time. It takes a while,
Yeah.
Cause we're going to be working with, Tina Gibson at Imagine Music.
Okay.
On this one exclusively. So, she's a fantastic agent. If you're a musician in the area, you don't know her, look up Imagine Music Group. Most of the time when someone in town is coming through town, it's like the Doobie Brothers is in Rock Hill or Toto or something like that, like what they call legacy groups now. She's usually one of the ones working with them. What
is she, a booking agent?
Yep.
Did you have to hook me up with her, have her on the podcast?
Awesome.
Please, because awesome. I'm always looking for different people to come on and talk about their business. Yeah. I'd love to talk to her.
She's such a wonderful person. And I have been working with her for probably 15 years, just on a case by case casual basis.
Sure.
And this will be the first project that we actually have exclusively.
That's fantastic.
So much looking forward to not have to do booking and all the stuff that goes with it.
So you got the Chunky Daddy, which is the wedding band.
Yeah.
And it only does weddings or does it do corporate events?
We sometimes do other stuff. It depends. We mostly do weddings. Okay. We'll do a few other things a year. We've got, in May, I think it's in May, we've got, a thing coming up at the convention center for a corporate event. And then we're also doing a thing at, Winthrop.
Okay.
Out there at the college. Which again, when I joked, I said, I'm glad I don't have to do any booking with this new Buffett project because I had to go back and forth for 3 weeks with the Winthrop University attorneys to get my contract taken care of. But yeah, so that's going to be cool. We do some things here and there. Like last 4th of July, we played at Davidson on the Green, which was public.
Yes.
But we only do a few a year in public. It's mostly weddings.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, so what else? You've got the solo acoustic stuff that you do.
Yeah, and I've been doing some stuff with our mutual friend Tara.
Okay, yep.
Which has been a blessing because she's great to sing with. She harmonizes.
Awesome.
Yeah, she harmonizes extremely well, and she's easy to sing with.
Yeah. How'd you meet Tara?
I don't really know. Hold on. I met her. She was playing with Ray Tyson.
Yes.
They were playing after me at Goldie's.
Okay, doing a Delta Fire duo?
Yep. You ever play at Goldie's?
Yes.
It's a pain in the butt to deal with that sound system in there because you're behind the speakers.
Yes.
And you're supposed to run sound from the stage, but you can't hear. So I always offer to stick around and help the next band get their front of house right. So I did that as I usually do, and it was Tara and Ray. And so they had come in early and they were listening to my last 5 or 6 songs, and I stuck around and listened to their first 4 or 5, and then she found me on Facebook. We just started talking, and next thing you know, we had a gig on the books.
That's awesome.
It's been great.
I met Tara. Well, when I think we spoke about it briefly. I don't know if I've ever really talked about it much on the podcast, but I had a vocal hemorrhage a couple of years ago, and I couldn't sing for a year. And me being the dedicated musician that I was like, I'm not going to give up all these gigs.
Amen.
And I touched base with Shannon Lee. And Shannon was like, yeah, call these people. And she gave me a list of people to call to find out about people to help me out. And Tara was one of them. And Tara performed with for a whole bunch. And we still do some long leaf gigs together. Occasionally when I have call for a fuller band, most of the stuff I do these days is solo acoustic. But she's an awesome I'm envious of anybody who can harmonize like.
She can just pick it out.
Yeah. Can you do that? Because I can't.
I have a knack for it.
God
but I'll tell you,
you,
one of the things that's been a great thing is she is in the Buffett and Beyond project as well. She's our female, I say backup singer, but we have her singing lead on a couple of songs as well. She's going to be doing Pontoon by Little Big Town and The Tide is High by Blondie because they both kind of fit the theme, I think. Yeah. And she crushes them. But one of the things that's been awesome is the harmonies. We've been doing some stuff like Jimmy Buffett's cover of Southern Cross. Yes. And stuff like that where the harmonies have to be, they got to be right or you're going to mess the song up. And it's her and myself and Pat Cray. I don't know if you know Pat, but he's
the keyboard player?
Yeah, every bit as much of a front man as far as vocal ability.
Yeah.
Like he used to front his own bands back in the 80s and tour around and stuff. So and essentially you have 3 people who sing as well as any front person.
Sure.
Now all harmonizing together. It's not, no one really is a backup singer, quote unquote, as much as they are a singer who is happening to sing backup on this song.
Right.
And it makes it amazing. Because we were doing it without a female singer, and then we decided I talked to the guys, and I said, well, I'm thinking about asking this girl Tara to come out and sing with us. And from the first rehearsal she came out, it was like, okay, this is exactly what we need, because that 3-part harmony it's perfect. It's so good.
Tara she just can click in.
Yeah, she's great.
She's just fantastic.
She's great.
And especially if you make it easy for people. Like I remember one time I was playing with Shannon on one of the gigs I was playing where she was helping me fill in and do vocals. She was like, thanks. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, thank you. I owe you coming out now. She's like, you just made it so easy. You just put everything together and I just dropped in and sang over the top. I mean, if you make it, not that some of the folks aren't extremely talented, but I mean, if you can make it as easy for them to do it, man, it just makes life so much easier when the wheels are greased.
I hope she listens to this, because I will say Tara probably does get frustrated with me often enough, because I had done the solo acoustic thing for so long.
Yeah.
I got used to just singing the songs however the heck I wanted. And now I'm not as consistent as I probably should be. So we'll do the first chorus of a song and she'll give me a side eye, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have to sing it like the record now that I'm singing not by myself. So then the rest of the choruses are perfect after that. But that first one, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not by myself. I got to sing it the right way.
It's funny because I'm playing with John, and Tara on different occasions. They will both say to me, I'm playing with these other groups and we do it either exactly like the record or they do it like they do it. And I have to think back to the way that you do it, cause when you're doing cover stuff yourself, doing a lot of solo stuff, you kind of fall into the trap of this is my version of it. This is the way I do it.
And people receive that a lot better, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, at least for me, maybe it's just the way I sing, but if I do it my way, I usually get a much better response than trying to do it like the record, because I know that I can't do it like the record. I have a very, very limited vocal range these days. I know exactly what it is, so I put all the songs there so they all sound.
Sure.
People are like, you're a great singer. I'm like, no, if you only knew that I had about 16 notes that I could hit. I just put everything in the key of D and E. That's all.
There you go, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's just when you do things your own way. I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me and said they're like, I love the way you do that song. And I'm like, well, that's about the only way I can do that song. So
that doesn't matter.
I just did it how I could do it.
Yeah, man. You just got to do what works for you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you're doing cover stuff, I don't know if I could do a cover band and try to play exactly like the record every night.
I can't. I just can't. The closest resemblance I can give you for Chunky Daddy and my acoustic duos and stuff, it's really more just like a Dave Matthews format. It's going to be different every time we play it.
There you go.
We're not doing the same thing every night. We know there's a lead break here. The saxophone player and I will glance across stage and we'll decide who's going to take it while the song's happening. Yeah. And then one of us will take it. It could be completely different than it was last night. But yeah, I just don't feel like that's one of the things with this Buffett band that's challenging for me is it's a show band versus a wedding band or a bar band. So we're trying to make it the consistent show. We're trying to nail the run of show from start to finish. And it's been difficult because I'm not used to doing that. I'm used to just being able to, on the fly, do whatever I want.
Right. How did the Buffett and Beyond come together? What was it? Had you been thinking about doing another group besides Chucky Daddy or what?
I have thought for a long time now that as I'm getting older, I don't want to do what I'm doing now. Right. It pays well. The acoustic gigs are good. The wedding band stuff is good. But I don't know if you've ever been in a wedding band, but those are long days, man. Like sometimes we'll be somewhere to start setting up and loading an equipment at 1 PM, and we don't leave there until 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And we only played for 2 hours. It was just a lot of setting up and then waiting because they're using the venue for the ceremony and everything else. So we can't do it during. So I don't want to do that anymore. And I got to thinking what kind of project could be more longevity that would be conducive to getting older.
Sure. And
Buffett fits that profile to a T. I can do a Jimmy Buffett show till I'm 70 years old. Nobody's going to care. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to think twice about it. So we got to talking about that, and I had been playing a couple times here and there with Party Parrot Band. You know Tommy?
Yes.
Yeah, Tommy Keys, Tommy and Nate and those guys. They have their little Jimmy Buffett band. And played with them, kind of got the lay of the land on how well it was received and how those shows kind of went. And then I talked to Tom and I said, hey, do you want to try to make something bigger out of this? And right around that same time, he was toying with, and then decided to join the Petty Rewind band. So he wasn't going to have the time to build anything bigger than what it already was.
Right.
And I said, well, then do you care if I do? And he said, no, that's fine. And I said, okay. So I just started one on my own.
There you go.
And, but really it's more of kind of the retirement plan. Yeah. It's something I feel like I can do for a long time and not have to stress about it. And the agency we're working with, it's the max we're going to do is 2 hours. You know, we're not a tribute band. We're a theme band, but the same kind of rules will apply. It'll be a 2-hour spot at the most, sometimes 90 minutes. And the gigs will pay about the same as the weddings do. So it's not a 10-hour, 12-hour day.
And that's good, man.
Yeah,
that's good.
And in addition, when you have the agency backing, you're not running your own sound and production. You have people setting stuff up for you. You just show up with your guitar and play, and they put you in the air conditioning with some sandwiches in your green room, and you don't have to worry about stuff. So this is more the retirement plan. And as a happy accident, I have completely fallen in love with Jimmy Buffett music. I know that's so weird because I'm one of those guys. I'm like a real musician. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And then you look at these 3-chord songs, you know, but the more I listen to him, especially the live cuts, his backing bands were fabulous.
Oh God. Yeah.
The musicians were incredible. Some of the stuff on these live cuts, it's like we sit there and listen and go, how do we even come close to trying to do that? He had 15 musicians on stage when we've got 6.
Yeah.
So
not easy.
But yeah, I've really fallen in love with the music. I dig it. It's a good vibe. Fits my vocal range. You know, as I've aged a little bit, fits my vocal range well, especially not the early Buffett stuff, because his voice obviously went through some kind of change as well, which I didn't realize until I started learning this stuff.
Right.
Because about halfway through his career, everything was about 2 steps lower than it used to be.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, it fits well. It's an acoustic gig. I don't have to bring amps and big rigs, and it's a fun thing, you know, and I've found myself having more fun on Sunday nights. That's when we rehearse, is Sunday nights.
Right.
I have found myself having more fun on Sunday nights than I do at any gig I do throughout the week. It's become a fun thing. And for me, for a long time, the rat race of doing so many gigs like we were talking about earlier, it gets to you. You know, it wears you down and you get that burnout. Burnout is so real in the music world. It's so real. And this has revived a lot of my love for doing it. And it's become a cool thing for me because I got kind of so stuck in the monotonous routine for so long, and this has been an exciting thing that's popped up on my radar now. Well,
if you can make more money doing a corporate gig, I mean, not to let the cat out of the bag, but I mean, certain kinds of gigs you play, you make more money.
Oh, absolutely.
Weddings, corporate events.
Oh, yeah. And the acoustic world's the same thing too. You'll get a bar like somewhere like a Hoptown in Mooresville, but then you'll also have somewhere like a Longview Country Club in South Charlotte.
Yeah.
Those pay completely different as well.
Yep.
So, you know, one you're making $50 an hour, one you're making $125 an hour. So it depends on where you're at. There's a big gamut of stuff.
That's always what I talk to people about booking. It's always, well, what do you charge? I understand that everybody has a different rate.
Right.
You know, this is normally what I get.
Right. And people will say, what do you charge? I say, well, give me more information first.
Yeah.
Like, are you talking about a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3 at a local place near my house?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you a different rate for that than a Saturday night from 9 to 12 in South Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very different rate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And, yeah, it's tough.
But it's also, what the other thing that people don't understand is, like, if you go out with a band and you're playing a brewery or something like that, since they're paying less, that means every musician in that band is making less money.
Right.
And honestly, that's part of the reason I started doing more solo stuff, is because I was making more money. I mean, it's got nothing to do with anybody that I don't want to play with.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if I'm playing in a group or a duo or a trio, I'm getting those people to play because I can pay them decently.
Right.
I don't want somebody to come out and play with me and be like, hey, I'm only going to be able to pay you $75 for tonight.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I've done that once in the last, I don't know how many years. And it was when I first met Tara. We had a gig I was supposed to do with John.
Right.
And John had something come up at the last minute and said, can you just do it as a solo? And I said, well, I'll just do it as a duo, because I had just met Tara.
Yeah.
We had several gigs coming up, and I said, hey, I can only afford to pay you this, but we have these shows coming up and we've never played together. If you want to do it, come down. It'll give us an excuse to do a gig together, and then you can keep tip, whatever tips or, whatever. And that's the only time I've ever offered somebody that. I don't even offer. If I can't afford to pay you well, I don't usually even offer.
Yeah. I want to pay people decently when they're playing for me,
But I'd say it's amazing how recession-proof musician pay is.
Oh, man.
I mean, inflation-proof, rather, not a recession-proof. Like, we'll be
Don't
making
get
the
me
same
started,
thing we were making
man.
20 years ago at some of these places.
I feel like I've gotten a raise since I started doing solo stuff, but you just look at it and everything has gone up, man. I mean, I just got a bill from the power company and I was like, you talk about inflation proof teaching, same thing, public school.
Gosh.
It's like they have not, every time it's like, oh, you've been teaching 25 years, you're making the same salary. We're not going to increase it. Sorry, I don't mean to complain about my job.
No, you're good, man.
It.
I'm going through a divorce right now, but my soon-to-be ex is a teacher. She's at Pine Lake Prep.
Yeah.
In Davidson, really, but Mooresville. And we've talked about that a bunch. I feel just as passionately about teachers being undervalued and underpaid as I do church stuff. I'm equally as passionate. It's appalling what you guys do and get compensated for. Yeah. Especially now with the threat of, now not only do you have to teach, but you're also going to have to step in front of a bullet maybe as well. But we're still going to pay you. I mean, if you're going to step in front of a bullet, at least pay you what law enforcement's making.
Just give me a vest.
It's like law enforcement's making more than you. You have to step in front of a bullet with nothing. At least they have a vest and a firearm with them.
Yeah.
But I'm very passionate about that as well. But yeah, musician pay is inflation proof, man. That's, Sean Kaiser?
Yeah.
We were talking one time about gig money, and I won't go into specifics, but he was like, I was making that back in the 90s when I was putting myself through college. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're making that now? I'm like, yes. That's the same exact pay you were making 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's really, it's interesting because you don't set the hours. Right. And you don't set, in a way you can set the pay, but you can't.
Right.
Depends
on where you are. Like you said, it depends on the venue and the time. And as far as price, it also depends on where you are and what season of your life. Yeah. There are gigs I'll take in January and February that I will not take in June, July, and August. Yeah. But it's January and February. So I need the money, so I'll take them.
Dude, I've had private conversations with other musicians that I know, and we just go back and forth. And I remember a number of years ago, I was like, I was only charging this. And let's say it was $150 for a gig. It was a few years ago. And I got to talking to a couple of people like, you should be charging at least this. And I was like, okay. So then I just started charging at least that. And I started getting paid that. And I'm like, man, I think at this point from now on going forward, I'm going to start telling people, I'll go into not 2025, maybe next year, 2026. I could be like, hey, my rates are this now. This is what I'm getting paid.
That's a good way to do it. I always just try to get as much information as I can. Yeah. Like the more information you can give me if you're looking for a quote, the better off I'll be. Yeah. Because I'll tell you, as a musician, one of the things that isn't talked about is pulling up to that house party that you charged $375 for and realize that it's a $10 million home. And you're going, I should have charged $500 for this. Yeah. Yeah. That's an awful feeling. You're pulling in going, I should have charged a lot more for this gig.
But there's also that thing of like, and I'm not saying I won't do that, but this is what I charge. I feel like I'm being honest. Yeah. I'm not trying to rake somebody over the coals.
Exactly.
Not like, oh, it's a private party. Oh, you want me solo for a private party? It's going to be $1,500.
Oh, right.
Be realistic. Yeah. But if you ask, what's your budget? We've allocated this. Yeah, I can do it for that.
Yeah. Well, that's another great point too. Anybody who is listening that is starting out or doesn't have a lot of gigs, a lot of times if you just ask people what their budget is, you get a lot further than trying to give them a price, because your price might scare them off when their budget might have only been $50 less than what you were saying. So yeah, like I said, more information. The more information I can get out of you, the better. Yeah. Trying to get a gig. So
it's an interesting landscape to have to navigate, and particularly when you're older and you have experience doing this kind of stuff, it makes it a little easier. When you're younger, I don't know if you ever go on the Charlotte Musicians page or something. I see some of the page sometimes, and it just makes me laugh. Not in a bad way, just makes me laugh because people are like, hey, I'm looking for gigs. Do you have any idea of where I can look and what I can? And I just think, wow, things most musicians do not put out publicly.
Right.
Like if they've been doing this for a while, I do not say I'm looking for gigs. Right. I do not do this, you know.
Well, you see all kinds of stuff on those pages, and you see so many arguments among people. And I'm not downing somebody. You are where you are.
Yeah.
And maybe different markets are different than Charlotte. I just know this scene, and I know the DC scene because that's where I'm from. But people will say things like, well, that's why you need to get a contract. Brother, good luck getting a bar to sign any kind of contract for live music. They're just not going to do it. They're just going to book somebody else. Yep. It's $150 or $200 or whatever. They don't care.
Yep.
But yeah, it's fun to watch the interactions. You can tell who has been doing it.
Yep.
And who really wants to do it but hasn't been.
There's I remember being on a some and there was, won't name any names, but there was a big debate, and it always pops up every once in a while. It's like, do you wear shorts for a gig? Do you wear
if it's hot outside?
I don't. That's my thing.
I will. But again, I'm also fronting a Jimmy Buffett cover band, so I'll wear shorts and a Hawaiian shirt all day long.
And that's the thing, man. I remember I was playing at Ballantine on the green, something on the green a couple of years ago. So I started early, and it was literally like almost 100 degrees by the time I started at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I show up and I've got my uniform on. I got my jeans. I got my hat. I got my t-shirt and stuff. And the dude's like, "You're wearing jeans?" And I'm like, "Dude, this is the way I play. I don't like the picture of me up there on stage with shorts. Like, I won't know."
But you're a fit, good-looking guy.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I don't feel that way.
You're sitting across from a 300-pound guy who doesn't look good from any angle. I might as well wear shorts and just enjoy.
You're a beautiful man. You look great, dude.
But yeah, it's funny. I mean, I know some musicians that are like that, though. Some guys are like, I'm not wearing shorts. I'm like, that's fine. That's your prerogative, dude.
But if you can do it, like you said, if you're in a Buffett band and that's what you do.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm not knocking anybody, but I've gone to breweries and stuff, and I see guys playing outside, and God bless you if that's what you want to do. But they're playing in tank tops and shorts and flip-flops. And I'm just like, dude, that's not the way you show up.
Unless it's a specific venue that kind of, like a beach venue or something like that calls for it.
Yeah. Like you shouldn't be doing that. Because then in a certain way, in my head anyway, it cheapens what you're doing. If you're on stage and you're that person, you need to dress accordingly to what you're going to do.
That's what I was about to say. It depends on the venue.
Yeah.
You know, like I wear a lot of casual stuff. I do not look like a musician. I just never have. It's been one thing that just always escapes me. I have one mode. It's called Little League Dad.
Yeah.
It's Skechers and jeans and a t-shirt. That's about all I got.
Yeah.
And, but when I'm playing at a place like Eddie's on the Lake.
Yeah.
I'll dress differently than when I'm playing at Cedar Stump Pub in Troutman. It's a different place. You gotta, and then if I'm doing a country club gig at Ballantine or Longview or, Carmel or something like that, then it's, then it's slacks and a polo shirt buttoned,
Absolutely.
It's just a different thing. But that's the one thing I have found as a musician in general. The more versatile you can be, the more you'll make money.
Yeah.
Like just the more you can do, the more you're willing to let your guard down and do goofy things or not be don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
We're all in there playing the same, 60% of our song lists are all the same stinking covers we all do.
Yeah.
There's no need to take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
But I will do anything. I've done gigs where it's all children's music. I've done all kinds of cool stuff. I got to, this one was great because we were talking about reading music earlier. This one put me through my paces. I got to do the United Methodist Church National Conference for the Vietnamese congregation of the United Methodist Church. I was the only non-Vietnamese person in the band. They invited me to come play with them. So what's the first thing you do when you get lost in a piece of music? You look at the words.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, where are they? I can't read the words now. It's all Vietnamese. If I got off at all, I'm like glancing over the keyboard player, trying to see where his left hand is. I'm like, that's where we are. It was fun though. But I've gotten to do so many cool things. But if you can diversify yourself, I did some gigs at an apartment complex during COVID. Yeah. They had me come out and I played out in the parking lot and I played every Disney song I could think of. Yeah. I was doing stuff from Moana and, Jungle Book, and we had a great time. A bunch of little 6-7-year-olds dancing around. And then the next night I'm playing at a wine bar wearing a shirt and tie. It's just.
Where's the weirdest place you've ever played?
Well, I'll say that you can edit it out if you want because you run a clean podcast according to your
okay,
email.
Go ahead, man.
There's a strip club in Fayetteville near Fort Bragg. That was an interesting gig.
Yeah. Were you playing for the dancers to dance? They were dancing?
I had a trio in there, and we were playing music while the dancers were dancing.
Dude, that's like so 1950s and 60s. I used to hear like...
it was weird, but it was kind of cool.
There was a documentary. Hold on, I got to think of it real quick. There was an old TV show, and Hogan's Heroes.
Okay.
The dude who was in Hogan's Heroes, the actor, if I remember correctly, he was also a drummer. Oh. And in California, because they made a documentary about his whole life, I won't go into that, but he used to play for strip clubs back in the day. And it just reminds me like,
they're there.
Oh, they didn't have records playing back in the day. They actually had a band for the dancers to dance
Well, this
with.
is much after that.
Yeah,
but yeah, same kind of principle. It was an interesting gig.
Man, that must have been fun.
Gig. I've done that. I played with a wireless microphone and a wireless guitar on the top of a cherry picker in downtown somewhere. I must have been 30 feet in the air. It was terrifying.
Damn.
But there was a parade, and they had me over the parade. Yeah, terrifying.
Do you even hear yourself?
No.
It's just like you're just acoustic.
It was awful.
Wow.
But, they gave me a check, so I did it.
That's what we do.
I
think there's a place, and I want to put them down. It's a nice little venue. Well, a venue is an interesting place to play. It's a vineyard here in town.
I think I know
in the area. And we played, I remember showing up to play, and it was just like you kind of think there's a little stages there. It was basically plywood laid out, and you set up your stuff, and that was the little stage, and you were playing almost in the woods.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is the spot. Like, you got, and there's goats like 5 feet away.
Oh, yeah.
You know the spot I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
What a great, it's a great place. It just cracks me up.
You ever play at the old Quaker Steak and Lube when it was still in Concord Mills?
No.
The stage is all the way on like the far side of the parking lot by the road.
Yeah.
And they make you bring your own sound.
Yeah.
And you're 200 yards away from the building, and there's 150 bikes out there.
Oh my God.
And they're complaining they can't hear you. I'm like, dude, we're a local band with a local PA system. What did you think was going to
Oh my God.
But you're so far away from everything, and you're just on a slab of like basically plywood, sitting on cinder blocks out in the middle of the sun, just baking. You ever done one on the back of a flatbed?
I have not.
Those are terrible too, because the flatbed trucks aren't very deep when you're using them as a stage, so you're all kind of on top of each other, and then they're not
stable.
They're not exactly stable. We played at what was that place called? Suck Bang Blow that opened up. Another biker bar.
That's great.
They were over across the street from Quaker Stable, also near Concord Mills, over by Iron Thunder, and they put us on the back of a flatbed, and we were all getting sunburned after the first hour. So I went to my car, and we took a tent out, one of those pop-up tents, and we nailed it to the floor of the stage, which was the flatbed.
Right. Oh my God.
And the wind was shaking it all around. Damn.
See, these are the things people don't see. It's like inside baseball or pulling back the veil. It's like, I played, one of the strangest gigs I ever had to play. It wasn't a strange place. It was a funny story. So I'm playing at Suffolk Punch in South End. So, man, I thought I was being all smart because I played there previously, and the few times I played there before, I was out in the sun. So Walmart had a sale. I went and bought myself a 10 by 10 tent. Set up the tent. I was like, I was feeling so good about myself. I was like, this is good, perfect. I'm so smart.
This is going one of two different ways. I'm seeing it already.
So I didn't look at the weather, and I don't think anybody really knew it was going to happen. It was like this pop-up thunderstorm in the summer. So this storm comes up. Thank God I had this tent. It starts storming, and I say storming, man. It was downpouring, cats and dogs. Here I am. Thank God this tent's there, and I'm putting all my stuff away, and I get everything in its bags. These dudes from the bar come out. They see me struggling, putting all the stuff away. All of a sudden, the wind starts picking up. The wind picks up this tent throws it over the brick wall that I was playing against. I'm like trying to grab it, hold on to the tent, bring it back down, bust up the tent. By the time I had loaded everything in the car, I was literally soaking wet from head to toe. Yeah. I'm like, man, that is probably one of the strangest or funniest things that ever happened to me while I was gigging.
Musicians who are really out there gigging, we all have gone through one of those wet nights.
Yes.
And you learn one thing that I didn't know early on. A lot of this equipment is actually way more resilient than you think it is if you open it up and let it dry out before you try to turn it back up.
Yeah, right? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, we had one not too long ago where with the wedding band where it was an outdoor thing.
Yeah.
And we got just drenched. Like everything got wet. There was no, like, we had cover and everything for the stage, but everything just started coming in from the side and it was a nightmare. But yeah, we've all been there, man.
I don't think anybody, when they book you for an outside gig, I don't think they're thinking about that stuff. You as the musician, like if you've done it a few times or you've been around the block, you realize, hey man, I need this and I need that. And they're like, what's the problem? My friend, case in point, my friend was playing a gig the other day and I've played gigs like this too. But I mentioned it because she was just telling me it was, a wedding gig and the bride wanted them outside and it was absolutely freezing. She said it was like 30 degrees or something. And we're like, well, we need some heaters or something because we've got these instruments that are wood instruments and they're expensive and they've even got it in the contract. And I've played gigs like that where I'm outside doing a wedding gig. I remember, I think me and Dee did a couple where it was like October or just the end of October and it was freezing out and we're I'm finger picking every tune doing a wedding gig because it's the ceremony.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, my fingers are frozen and I'm like, oh my gosh.
This past December was the first year we haven't done the Fezziwig Ball in Rock Hill.
What's that?
So Fezziwig is the name of it's Charles Dickens. It's Scrooge's mentor. So if you go back,
I know that.
Before, the Fezziwig Ball is basically, it's a Christmas thing in December. They do the Grinch. The Grinch comes out in full costume and hangs out. And
that sounds cool.
But they always, this is the first year we hadn't done it. It was this past year. We did it like 4 or 5 years in a row. And that one was always the same way. They put all those portable heaters out for all the guests.
Okay.
But then the stage was freezing cold in, late December. And everybody's huddling around these heaters and we're up there on stage like, nobody's dancing, nobody's doing nothing. It's freezing cold. Yeah, people don't think, but as you do it more, you learn what's important and what's not. Yeah. You learn the things that you can get away with being without. Yeah. And then the things that are like, no, this is a deal breaker. This has to the first time my drummer had to have skin cancer cells removed from his forehead, I was like, okay, now we're going to stick to having cover on stage every gig, no matter what. If you don't have a cover, we're just not going to play.
Yeah.
Set us up under something or we won't play.
Yeah. As a hair follically challenged gentleman, I always have a hat.
Yeah. But either way, it's like, I'm not going to stand in the blistering sun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. This, not for what I'm getting, not for what I get paid.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot you don't think about. Everybody thinks, you just go on stage and you play. No.
There's so much more to it than that.
And if you don't have a roadie, which most of us, of course, don't. We're hauling our own gear. We're setting up. At the time you come, there's a lot in it, man. Yeah. There is. So let me backtrack just a little bit with you, Matt. You're doing solo acoustic stuff. You're playing with friends like mutual friends like John or Tara. You've got Buffett and Beyond.
Yep.
You've got Chunky Daddy.
Yep.
What else, man?
Just church, man. Other than that, it's just church.
So how'd you get involved with the church music? What are you doing?
I'll tell you what's funny is I'm somebody who converted as an adult.
Okay.
I grew up in a very atheist household. My father was not just somebody who didn't believe, but wanted to prove to you why God doesn't exist. Okay. And I grew up in that household.
Sure.
So I was a product of that. And as a young person, you are who you are and who you were raised to be for a while till you become an adult and go, no, I'm a grown up. I'm going to make my own decisions.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why it's debatable whether 18-year-olds that live at home should be allowed to vote or not. Because they're just gonna vote whatever way their parents tell them to.
Sure.
But same kind of principle. But gosh, what was I saying? I made the joke and now I forgot where we were.
Just growing up in an atheist household.
Yeah, and then so I was playing about 17 years ago.
Okay.
I was playing at a wine bar in South Charlotte called, what was it called?
Divine Wine?
No, this was before. This is the one that Divine Wine ended up opening, and this place closed down. Vintage Wine Cellar. It was over the other side of Johnston.
Okay.
Over by the other restaurants. So if you get off and you make a right, and then Divine Wine was that way.
Yeah.
It was over here by the Red Robin and all that.
Okay.
And I was playing there every Friday night, and when I first moved here for $175, and it was an hour and 20 minutes.
And you're
in the
like,
car
I'm doing
each
some
way.
money.
Yeah.
I'm making good money.
175 plus tips and an hour and 20 minutes each way in the car. But I was playing down there, and an older gentleman and his wife became regulars, as you do. I don't know if you've had house gigs before, which
sure.
I don't take a lot anymore because you have to learn so much new material to stay fresh. I just don't dig it anymore. But they kept showing up. And then about the fourth or fifth time they were there, he walks over to me and he says, "Hey, I've seen you a bunch of times. We really like you." He said, "Have you ever played in church?" And I said, "Well, I'm not a Christian." And he goes, "That's not what I asked you. I asked you if you play in church." And I said, "Well, no." And he goes, "Tons of people play in church that aren't Christians. We'll pay you." And I was like, "What?" It was foreign to me. I'm like, "What are you talking about? You'll pay me." So I ended up going to his church and meeting with his people. And then I started a thing over there for them. And they were paying me. They were paying me $15,000 a year to do a Wednesday night service. Yeah.
There you go. It's a good gig.
And I'm like, cool. And then over time,
so were you just
performing? Yeah, I was just going in there singing the songs.
Did you have a band with you, or just doing solo acoustic?
We built a band over time.
Okay.
But initially it was just me for the first 6 months.
How long was the set? It was just for an hour service?
Yes. It ended up, when we first started, it ended up being a typical church service as far as like it would have like 4 or 5 songs.
Okay.
But then as we got into it more and we grew a band, the band was really good. And we ended up doing about 7 or 8 songs over the course of an hour. So they did a more shorter, like a devotional type message, and then we did more music. But max about 8 songs.
Okay. That's a great gig. I mean, who's playing on Wednesday night?
Right. And it lasted about 3.5 years.
That's fantastic.
It was great. But over time, that kind of made me sit and listen to it, and I was in it, and it just opened my mind up to different things. But the Wednesday night service was a cool thing because I had gotten to the point where I had gotten to know a couple other worship leaders in town who were at their respective churches on Sunday mornings.
Right.
And they all came in and volunteered to play with me on Wednesday nights. So we had a band full of like pro level guys playing. Cool. We had a keyboard player who was playing key bass and keys, and a drummer, and it ended up being a really cool thing. We did a little reunion about a year after the service ended. We got together and played at another church just for fun.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a great experience, but that's what led me down that path of being a church musician. I didn't know it was something you could really get paid to do.
Are you still at the same church playing, or did you move churches? Okay.
As I have grown in my faith, I have landed in a place where I'm more theologically secure in what I believe and what I think is right. Mm-hmm. So I have gravitated toward a church that feels the same way.
Okay.
Early on, the churches I was at were way more conservative than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've grown and read more and understand more about the Bible and the history of Scripture and interpretations and Greek and Hebrew and all that stuff, it's led me toward gravitating toward a church that fits my views more.
Yeah.
So I'm not at the same church. There's been a few in the middle.
Music in church is an odd thing for me growing up the way I did back in New York with my Catholic upbringing in the Catholic church. And you're just like, yeah, the only time you really had music was this. There was no guy on stage playing guitar, singing songs. That's not part of it. And the couple of churches I've gone to down here that did do it, it didn't feel right to me. And that's just dude. That's the way I grew up. I mean, that's just what I'm used to.
That, though. That's the beauty part about church that people get. They get wrong, in my opinion. Yeah. I know that's a rough thing to say. It's a dangerous slope to slide down, saying somebody's wrong about their faith, but there's no right way to worship. Yeah. There's not. There's some wrong ways, absolutely, but there's not one right way.
Right.
I serve a church that has 2 services. One is completely polar opposite than the other. This one over here has organs, and she's wearing a robe, and they're doing, the Lord's Prayer and the creeds and all that stuff. And then this one is me playing the guitar and leading an informal prayer with the congregation. It's just a different thing. And we're all coexisting under the same roof. But people get so passionate about their faith that they want to tell people what's wrong or what they should be doing differently. And
right.
It's supposed to be more about inclusion than it is about anything else. I mean, that's what Jesus came for, was to tell us, hey, knuckleheads, stop excluding people. You're all brothers and sisters. You're supposed to love your neighbor the same way you would love yourself. That's it. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
When directly asked in the Bible what the most important thing is, that's what Jesus responded. Love your God and love your neighbor like you would yourself. And that's where he ended it. He didn't say, unless they're gay or unless they're black or unless – he didn't say any of that. He just said, love your neighbor as you would have them love you. Okay. Sounds easy enough. We still get it wrong for thousands of years.
Because everybody's got their own opinion.
Right.
I'm going to warp it and I'm going to change things the way I see fit.
Which is the beauty of the church I'm at right now, Central United Methodist in Mooresville. We are what I believe church should be. We don't care who you are. Come in. We'll welcome you. We'll save you a seat. We'll get you a cup of coffee. We don't care if you're gay, black, trans, white, even if you don't speak English. We don't care. You're welcome here.
Just come in.
Yeah.
Because we're not here for that.
Right. And we're not going to treat you any differently than we treat anybody else.
There you go.
But because of that forward thinking, we are a smaller church.
Right. Because
we don't stand on those ancient principles of what church is supposed to be.
Right.
We try to treat the church more like a hospital, like what it was supposed to be.
Interesting.
I could go down that road forever, dude. That's the thing I'm probably the most passionate about in my life is my faith.
But well, I mean, it comes with age.
But I'm also not outspoken about it because you don't see stuff. I'm not one of those people that thumps the Bible all over social media and stuff.
Right.
That's not what we're supposed to do.
Right.
That doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah.
Yelling at people about how they're wrong about their faith is not going to – there's a lyric from the John Mayer song, Belief. Do you know the song?
No.
It starts with the first lyrics in the song is there anyone that you can ever remember changing their mind from the paint on a sign? No. Picket signs and yelling at people from the road and that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
Loving people is how you get –
You mean putting your political opinions on Facebook and expecting everybody to agree with you?
I don't understand.
It's not going to change anything.
It's not going to change anyone's mind.
You know, my friends on Facebook, I have snoozed in the last couple of months because I will occasionally troll. And I'll put something up, but it's more humorous than anything else. I have learned that I try not to get into political arguments with people because it's just like, you've got your opinion and I've got my opinion and it's not going to change anything. But I don't want to turn on my Facebook feed and see everything is this.
I just don't want to see hate from either side.
Yeah.
And that's where, obviously if I'm telling you I'm a little more liberal, you probably know where I stand politically, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters is decency. Human decency has flown out the window.
Yeah.
When did we come to a point where we can't agree to disagree?
Yeah.
As we were talking about earlier, you're either with me or against me. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There are things that I like about both political parties.
Yeah.
One more than the other, but there's things I like about both sides. There's things I don't like about both sides.
And I suppose people, though.
There's things I've liked about the last 4 presidents, and there's things that I've not liked about all 4 of the last presidents. I mean, you don't win me over just because you say, I'm this. Yeah. Generalizations are terrifying and dangerous.
But it's the country, and
that's
where
we
talk
come
about politics.
To.
I mean, most people are right in the middle.
You can cut all this out.
Yeah, no, man, I love listening to stuff
until we have leaders on both sides that are not going to actively promote division, we can't fix anything.
Yeah.
And that goes for Democrats and Republicans. Whatever side you're both, because both sides.
Left or right.
They both promote division right now. They want you to say, if you're not with me, you're against me. Until we get that mindset out of the people in charge, the people in charge need to promote unity.
Yeah. And the conspiracy theorist in me also says that's what they're doing. They don't want the American people to be together.
I know.
They want to create division in us so that we don't look over here. Don't look what we're doing over here.
In fact, you say about being scarce about what you post on stuff. That's the last thing I did post when I took it down because I said, they just want us to be angry at each other so we don't realize what they're all doing.
Yeah.
And people started firing off at me and I said, all right, I'll take the post down.
Yeah, because everybody knows everything.
But it's the truth. As long as we're arguing with each other, we're not going to see what they're doing.
I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day. Or I should say the other day. It's a couple of weeks ago, but he had Bill Burr on. And
that's a different kind of guy, man. If you listen
to Bill Burr, he said the most wonderful thing to Joe Rogan. They started talking about, I don't know, vaccines or something like that. Forget the topic. Bill Burr just says, Joe, I'm not even going to have this conversation with you. You may have read stuff. I don't know about this. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a doctor that I know everything about everything and all this. And you don't either. Even if you've read some stuff, you don't know. And
Yep.
It goes back to another guy that I listen to, Dave Ramsey, Financial. He goes,
Financial Peace.
What you have is an opinion.
My girlfriend, the girl I've been seeing, she loves Dave Ramsey stuff. She watches a lot of his stuff.
And he's right.
Yeah. I mean,
he's right.
Just because you Googled it doesn't mean you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's where I fell with the whole COVID stuff. People, it's real, it's not real. The vaccines are going to kill you. The vaccines are not going to kill you. You know what I did? I'm not a doctor. I went to my physician and I said, do you think I should get the shot? And he gave me his answer, and that's what I did.
There you go.
Because I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
And he is.
Yeah. And you do. And
I can research whatever I want, but that doesn't mean I'm going to make a fully informed opinion on anything or decision on anything.
And you got to do what's right for you.
Right.
If I think this is right for me,
right,
this is what I'm going to do.
But the beauty of our country is supposed to be that that's allowed.
Yeah.
And it's become not allowed to disagree.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
It's like everybody's an expert. They know a little bit about something now. And I've learned this as I've gotten older. Everybody's a little expert about something. I had someone I know, I won't even mention, but we got to talking one day about music. Bring it back to music. And
yeah, let's do that.
They said something to the effect of that their children were going to learn piano. And I said, oh, well, how come they wanted to learn guitar? How come you didn't teach them guitar? Well, I'm a little bit of a musician myself and I play guitar and blah, blah, blah. I feel that they need to learn piano first. And I was just like, the conversation went like, oh, Matt, I know just as much as you do because I play guitar. And I was just like, I'm going to end that conversation right there.
Yep.
Because you may be an expert in this area. If there's anything I know something about that I'm pretty secure, I'm going to say it's music.
Yeah.
I don't know the be all end all about everything. I will tell you where my knowledge stops.
But you do know enough to give an informed opinion.
Yes.
That is
yes.
well informed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that somebody will come to you, and if they want to know about music, they'll come to you about music. If I want to know about medicine, I'm going to talk to my doctor.
Right. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you can do is you try to educate yourself.
Yeah.
But with the vast wealth of information that is out there, it's hard to even know what's true and what's not anymore. So you can only educate yourself to a certain point. And then you have to, this is why I've always said it would make more sense for me to not watch a presidential debate, but watch their cabinet members debate.
You can't.
Give me your Secretary of Defense that you're going to nominate versus the current Secretary of Defense. I want to see them debate because no president knows everything. It's too big of a job for one person. Oh, God.
That's why they all study.
Right. I want to know who's whispering in your ear. I want to know what that person thinks. That's going to give me a way more informed decision.
But that's why I like podcasts. Like I mentioned Joe Rogan, but I also try to listen to more longer form podcasts, or at least an hour, because if you watch the news, the legacy news, and they have the talking heads on, I mean, maybe a segment is 3 minutes long and people are going to shout at each other, but you could sit down at a podcast and you hear somebody talk for an hour, 2 hours, Joe Rogan, 3-hour podcast, and he's talking to this person. You kind of get a sense on what they're about and where they're at.
Yeah.
And I think those are the conversations that the American public is dying to hear. You may not have time to sit and listen to the whole podcast for 3 hours, but if you can listen to pieces at a time and get a sense of what this person's about, because you're going to get to a deeper level.
Yep.
Like I went from this podcast originally 45 minutes, and now I've started going hour and a half, 2 hours, because I want to know about Matt Stratford more. I want to know about these kind of things that we talked about, man.
Well, and if you cut things down so far, you run the risk of things being taken completely out of context.
Yeah.
Because we live in that soundbite world where you can say something horribly offensive if you're a famous person and then say, I'm sorry, I did not mean it like that. That came out completely wrrong. I'm so sorry about that. Let me rephrase that. And the only thing the news is going to report is that first sound clip.
That's right.
Of you saying the thing completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's just, That's why I don't like a lot of the stuff. The whole thing about the political system and watching somebody for 5 minutes on a thing here or 10 minutes here or only answer a specific question. Like, you're right. You get to know people. And
then people actually today, I Google something I know, or I saw it on a meme. It must be true. Yeah. Like, I'll stop it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just curious, bring it back to the church musician thing. Do you find that as for musicians who are kind of getting into that, is it a viable path for them, like as a side hustle? Like I had a friend who I used to work with, and he was the music director for his church. It's one of the biggest churches in the area. How is that?
The bigger churches that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like that's a good full-time job. I have interviewed for jobs where I wasn't a strong enough piano player to do the traditional side of the service.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the job. But, a full-time church job as a musician making $65,000, $70,000 at a church.
It can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. But there's a big divide still between the contemporary worship and the traditional style worship.
Right.
With, the rock band versus the organ and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a big pay discrepancy that still exists.
Sure.
Among that, because people look at, like you just said, people that know a little bit about music, or they think they know a little bit about music. The committee at the church interviewing you, these are not musicians. These are people who volunteer to be on a committee at a church.
Yeah.
And when you come in and you say certain things, or you say guitar is your first instrument, they automatically think, well, he doesn't know how to read music or anything. He's just a guitar player.
Right.
Well, no, that's not the case. I just don't play piano that well.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just things like that. But then there's also the jobs where you're making $12,000 a year and it's just a part-time for the love of it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I was on 3 church staffs simultaneously. I did a Tuesday night service in Winston-Salem, a Wednesday night service in Charlotte, and a Sunday service in Charlotte. And and between the 3 salaries, I was making enough where I didn't have to gig if I didn't want to.
Right.
It can be. It just depends on the denomination. The bigger the church, odds are the musicians are making sustainable.
And they're damn good musicians too.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, you want to get your butt whipped as a musician, go play in a gospel church, preferably a black one time.
Yeah.
Those guys will put you to shame.
They're
modulating on the fly and expecting you to keep right up with them.
My former coworker, Keith, a friend of mine I worked with for years as a music teacher, when he retired from the school system, he was the music director. I don't know. I'd have to get Keith on, see if he wants to do it, talk about it. I think Ebenezer Church I think that might be the church he's at, if he's still there. And Keith played keyboards, and he was the music director because he's a solid guy. He's a great player, fantastic musician. And he'd tell me all about like how these guys play. He's like, man, these guys are killer musicians, just killer.
A ton of them can't even read music. They just grew up playing. They know chord progressions and numbers and stuff like that. And it's incredible, some of the stuff they do.
They know the tunes.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're doing this. What key are we doing in A? All right, and boom, play.
Yeah. I know somebody was telling me the other day, they're like, oh, our church never even decides what the last song is going to be until the moment it happens. Like the worship leader listens to the sermon and they're like, okay, we're going to do this song. And then they just start and everybody just does the song.
That's not an environment I like being in.
I wouldn't last 5 minutes in that kind of environment.
It's almost like being a jazz musician where it's like, hey, we're throwing down to, all right, okay, got it. Like, no.
Yeah, I do not do
I'm
the
so
jazz
structured,
thing.
It's so sad.
I do not do the jazz thing well. I do it poorly enough to sometimes get paid if I have to, but I don't do it well enough to consider myself a jazz player. I
played in big band jazz groups for a few years, and I learned a lot. It's not a style I love to do, but I can function it reading charts and playing, and I'm not taking leads and that kind of stuff. If
I got a chart ahead of time, I'll keep up with you. But the lead stuff,
it's not
playing over jazz chord progressions is insanely difficult for me. I never could get through. Like I understand how to use modes and stuff in the music I play, but for some reason I never could translate that into changing over top the chord progressions as fast as they do.
When Troy Kahn was on one of the episodes this year, Troy's player. And a fantastic guy too.
I don't know. I just seen him play. He's fantastic. Him and Jeremy Shaw are two of my, Jeremy Shaw?
No.
Another great player. There's some great guitar players in Charlotte. Oh, yeah. There really are.
So Troy was on, and it was just one thing, just talk about jazz. It's a language that I never got.
That's exactly
and maybe it's because I didn't love it. I didn't love it enough. Like I grew up on rock and blues, and that's the kind of language that's in my head, understanding that type of phrasing. I never understood. I didn't understand that language. I was like, what is that? That's just not my thing.
Yeah. No, I definitely have more of a blues mind than a jazz mind. Yeah. For sure. But I also did a lot of power trio blues stuff.
There you go.
For years, we'd go in, Ray Brackett, Forrest Brown, you know him, bass player in town, and we would do a trio for years, the Matt Stratford trio. We'd go into places and play 3 hours of blues, Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan and stuff like that. my brain just operates on that a lot better.
I don't see anybody, you know, it's funny you say that. I had thought a while ago when I wanted to get back into playing electric of putting together just a straight up blues band and trying to do something. I don't see anybody doing that now. A lot of it's just straight up covers.
We stopped doing it because we couldn't make any money.
Really?
We were making $100 a piece because nobody wanted to hear blues.
Is it because of the blues or is it because of what people are paying?
I don't know. I know that we never could get any traction with that little trio that way. We played a couple places regularly and we had a great time playing.
Yeah.
But we just never made any real money. So it became one of those things that we would try to book more in the off season in like December through March.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, then you're taking what you can get because all the outside stuff is out of the way and, you know, your schedule's light.
It's definitely a niche.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like a jazz band.
Yeah.
Like only so many places are going to have jazz. You're not going to go to a brewery on Friday night and see jazz.
Right.
You know?
Well, if you could make a living as a blues artist in today's market, that's probably what I'd be doing. Is playing electric guitar in a blues group. Yeah. I love that stuff, man. I could play that kind of stuff all night long. In fact, I did, the last project I actually did that I actually recorded anything. I'll send it to you sometime, not for the listeners of your podcast, but it's a cover album where I played all the instruments myself. I did the bass, the drums, and the guitar and all that. My dad always had a dream for me to put out a blues album that he would, of his favorites and my favorites kind of melded together.
Yeah.
And he always thought it would be cool if I played all the parts myself and did everything myself. And when he passed away, you know, I spent that next year and I went, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I did it. And it's got stuff like Hoochie Coochie Man, which was from his list.
Gotcha.
You know, to stuff like Lonely Night in Georgia, Mark Broussard, which is kind of from my list. You know, so it's a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new. There's some Ray Charles on there. There's some Bill Withers on there. It's a cool thing. But yeah, if I could make a living doing blues stuff, I totally would.
I gotta say, I love it. I don't know if I would want to do it for a living. I think I at this point, rock stuff, that's kind of where I grew up and that's where I'm like, we talked about earlier about doing certain covers and bands and stuff. Man, all the songs I do, I'm able to do because that's the stuff I grew up with that I love. So I don't have a problem playing Brown Eyed Girl on a Friday night for the 100th time. It's like, I love this song. This is a great song.
My musical upbringing was very strange.
Yeah.
My father was about the most eclectic music fan. I didn't learn any mainstream stuff. Like when I was a kid, I grew up not knowing and not ever hearing songs like Don't Stop Believin'. Or like I didn't know any of that stuff when I became a young adult.
You didn't. So are you have any siblings or no?
I have an older brother, and he was really into like he was really heavy into 90s stuff. Okay, like grunge stuff because he was right on that cusp of like Nirvana hit big when he was like in 8th grade. You know what I mean? Like, he was right there, so he listened to a lot of that stuff. But outside of that, it was just my dad's music, which was super eclectic, but nothing really mainstream. He would listen to a lot of Beatles, but it was a lot of B-side stuff, you know, or he'd listen to like the Flying Burrito Brothers. Yeah. But I didn't know who the Eagles were, but I knew who the Flying Burrito Brothers were.
Interesting.
As I got older, those gaps started closing a little bit. Yeah. And I fell in love with some of the stuff I didn't grow up on. But because of that, a lot of my music education that you usually get from your parents just chunks of stuff were missing. Oh, really?
I didn't get any from my parents. I got it from my brother. When I grew up, my dad finally got a stereo. So this is in the 70s. So my dad, whatever day, one day he decided he was going to get a stereo. So he got a stereo and 8-track. He got the 8-track for Saturday Night Fever. I think I listened to that a billion times. And of course, I got little stuff when I grew up, like Glen Cowboy's Rhinestone Cowboy. Okay. And I started getting other stuff, but I got really introduced to stuff from my brother because my brother used to hang out next door, and my neighbor next door, who my brother was close friends with, his older brother was a drummer in Long Island in the heyday.
Gotcha.
When Long Island was a lot, everybody was playing Long Island at that point.
There's a ton of musicians down here that were up in Long Island.
And my older brother would bring home albums and be like, you listen to this, listen to this. Cool. And you'd be like, oh my gosh. And that's how I started listening to Rush and
I never heard any of that stuff. My dad just listened to a lot of weird stuff. My dad was just an unusual guy in general.
Yeah.
He was someone who had a thirst for knowledge all the way up until the day he died. He just always wanted to absorb stuff. So a lot of mainstream stuff I just didn't get introduced to in my household in general because he always wanted to reach for stuff that was out there, to learn more, to absorb more. Like we had an English translation of the Quran sitting on our bookshelf.
Interesting.
When we were young. He also had, and this is going to come across wrong to some of your readers probably, and I don't mean it this way. But he had an English translation of Mein Kampf on the shelf as well. He's like, well, how am I supposed to know about Hitler if I don't understand what he was
talking about?
What he was talking about, what he was thinking. So he always wanted to educate himself. So we had so much weird music. Like some of the stuff I can't even remember half of what the stuff was. But
he was a voracious reader then.
He was.
My dad was very similar to that in that vein. He was definitely a voracious reader. We had
a whole room, like a library type room in the house. There's bookshelves all the way around every wall. Just thousands of books in boxes in the basement and everything. I'm a huge sci-fi guy. But
that's me. I love sci-fi.
Oh, man. He was upset when Carl Sagan died. He's like, he had every book Carl Sagan ever wrote, and then he was like, gosh, so I got to find somebody new now. But yeah, it was always just weird music, and but it's funny because as a performer, I got slapped in the face really hard, really fast with how much I didn't know.
You're like, I'm playing the Flying Believer Brothers. Right. Do you know any Eagles? What's that?
Right. You know what I mean? People are like, you know any Hank Williams? And I'm like, I couldn't even name you a Hank Williams song. But so it's been a fun educational experience being a cover musician because I've had to learn a lot of stuff I probably should have known all along. Oh
man. Yeah, like any other field, you get into it not knowing what you don't know, and then you're going to have to have experiences and learn how to do stuff. I mean, I think when I first started, I didn't know anything about operating a mixing board. I didn't know anything about talking into a microphone. Yeah. I didn't know anything about plugging stuff in and live sound. There's a lot to kind of get into it. I didn't know anything about recording, and now I just record stuff, We've
all had to learn.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody knows the sound piece of it. When we start, I don't think any of us do. I've never seen a young musician who knows how to run sound the right way.
Yeah.
Well, none of us do. We're just up there going, what does that do? That turns it up. Okay, well, that's cool. I'll do that. Yeah. You're using your gain instead of your master fader, like all kinds of stuff, and you don't have a clue what's going on.
But dude, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I was playing at Shep's in Mint Hill the other night, and John is a great guy, the owner, John. And man, he's got a great little PA system. So I'm plugging into the board, and I'm like, knowing what I'm doing. I'm like, I can't get the sound to work right. Like whatever's happening with the monitors, I've got the monitors on. I've got all the power up. I've got the gain up. I've got all the stuff. I'm like, okay. And then I'm playing. I'm like, I don't know. I'm halfway through the first set. It's got sound. It's just not.
It's not what it should.
It's not what it's supposed to. Something's wrong. And John comes in, and I'm like, I couldn't wait for him to come because I was going to ask him what's going on. He comes in. He's like, hey man. And I'm playing these. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He starts playing stuff. I'm like, yeah, what's going on with that? Boom. And I'm like, what did I miss? And he's like, these two buttons here, you need to have these down. And I'm like, dude, I was going crazy. I'm like, I've been doing this for years, and I don't know you. If you're a musician, you learn your board.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes each board is just a little different.
And there are some generational differences too. I've met guys who are maybe 20, 30 years older than me. When they run sound, they'll do things like not use the crossover in the sub. They'll run the sub through an aux send instead. You ever seen this? But if you don't know that walking into a house PA, no one's told you that. Yeah. We were at Wild Wing Cafe on a New Year's Eve about, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah. And no one told me that. And we're trying to figure out, we're running it ourselves, and it's this old analog board, and it turned out they had the subs routed into auxes 1 and 2.
Oh, God.
And I'm trying to put monitors in. I'm like, what is happening right now? But it's difference in stuff. Or you get the one. That's always the danger, too, of having a house PA system is the knucklehead before you. You don't know what they did.
Yeah.
I'll come into some places, and I'm looking at the board, and I just zero it out. Because I'm like, I don't even know what's happening here. I'm just going to zero everything out on the channels I'm using and start over.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you had a low cut on your kick drum channel with your highs in a 3 o'clock position, but that's not how I'm going to do it. So,
and sometimes you got a whole bunch of people who have no idea how to operate a board.
Right.
And let me just move all this stuff. Up. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge learning curve.
It is. It is. It's not something we think about. When we want to become musicians, we don't think about being sound engineers or recording engineers. We just think about, I can play guitar and sing, so that's what I want to do.
This is crazy. As you think about all the skills you've picked up over the years, just playing in the knowledge. I actually told John at Shep's the other night, I was like, dude, you know what you should do? He's like, what? I said, I've seen it a couple of places that have their own little PAs. I said, write out directions for it and laminate it. I said, so even when you get somebody in who doesn't know all their stuff, you could say, do this, do this, do this, do this, and they can kind of get the basic sound going. He's like, that's a good idea. And I'm like, I hope you do it.
Well, sound's just a different animal in general, you know? And now with all these digital boards that have all these presets on them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you show up somewhere and a guy's like, puts a preset on, and I'm like, my philosophy on sound is plug in and play.
Yeah.
If I need to fix something, I will. If I don't, I won't. Because the last thing you want to do as a sound guy is change the tone of a guitar player's tone or a bass player's tone. Just let them play, and if something needs fixing, fix it. But you go into places nowadays and they're like, they go like channel 3 is already set up for guitar. I'm like, what does that mean? My pedal board is set up to run direct, so you should probably just set that flat, and we'll see what mine sounds like first.
There you go.
You know, or it happens all the time, but it's a different skill set for sure.
Yeah, if you're doing interesting thing is with sound, they've got the digital boards. A friend who was telling me one of the nice things they liked about them is that they could save the sound of the setup.
Oh yeah.
That they did for whatever. If they played Shep's and they had a certain sound that they loved, they save it, and then the next time they go there, they can just pull up that sound, that arrangement that they had, and they're good to go.
We do that for the wedding band. We have a couple things saved. One's for outdoor, one's for indoor.
Yeah.
And we use electronic drums now exclusively with the wedding band because some of the venues people have weddings in now are just, it's a barn with a hardwood floor. And people are 10 feet away from you. I'm not taking live drums into that sound because the only thing it's going to do is make people mad because it's too loud.
Yeah.
So we started using electronic drums. We have the two settings, and if we're inside, we'll pull up that first, and Jeremy will take the iPad out front, and we'll play a song, and he'll just adjust a couple things here and there that need to, and that's it.
Yeah.
It saves us from having to do a start from scratch mix. You ever have a bad sound guy in a gig?
No, I was me. That's it.
I'm not going to name names, but we played a show that you were at where we were shooting some video recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sound engineer started front of house with vocals.
Yeah.
That's what he started with. He said, let's get these vocals in here. I said, you're not going to start with the drums? He goes, no, we're starting with vocals.
Okay.
I don't even know what to say right now. The minute everything got turned on, other than the vocals, you couldn't hear the vocals anymore.
Yeah, that particular gig was you couldn't hear the vocals.
You couldn't hear anything.
You couldn't hear the vocals very well.
I was wearing in-ears, and my mix changed completely by the time we went from sound check to stage time.
Oh wow!
Like it was just it was rough. It was rough. There's a lot of people.
Young guy.
Yeah.
Probably inexperienced. Yeah,
but when I paid,
you'd hope
when I paid to rent that venue out, though.
Yeah.
If that person that owns that venue wasn't friends with the agent that band is going to be working with, I probably would have said something.
Yeah.
But they're friendly, so I let it go. But I feel like I should have been partially refunded for that. That was the worst sound I've ever had.
I've been to shows, and I think some bands bring their own people and some that don't. And funny enough, me being the old musician that I am, I actually compliment the sound guy now. Like I saw King's X at the Neighborhood Theater. I don't know if it was their sound guy or the Neighborhood Theater sound guy. Sound was not good at all. And I've seen King's X quite a few times. Then I also saw Here Come the Mummies at the Neighborhood Theater.
They're great.
They are. And the sound was fantastic. So depending on who the group is and if they're bringing their own sound person or not. I mean, that front of house sound is...
You know what's always amazed me? I don't know how many times you've been out to like PNC or is it still called PNC?
Yeah.
It was called Verizon back when I used to play
there. It was.
But their front of house always sounds so sub heavy and not even at all.
Yeah.
Like for every one band I hear that has a great sound, there's 10 that I've heard there that just sounds muffled and horrible. And I don't understand if you're the sound guy and you're on that's $1 million rig, you know what I mean? And
sure.
You can't make that sound good. Why are you behind the board if you can't make that sound good?
I'm always sketchy about outside venues like that, and they're massive because I think I don't know. It depends on where you're sitting,
That's true
how many people are there. Like the sound changes depending on, like, you'll notice, like, if there's not that many people there at the start of the show when the opening band's there, it sounds like something. Yeah. And then by the time the other band comes in, it sounds like another thing. And honestly, when I'm there for sounds at those big things, man, I'm bringing earplugs anyway half the time because I don't want to sit there and get pounded.
Yeah, so stuff's gotten quite a bit louder.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works, Matt. As we get older, music just seems to get louder.
Yeah.
It's not us. It's the music that gets louder.
No, and that's not even true.
It's totally
actually
us.
That is true because with recordings, there's a thing with recording now where people are trying to get it really so close up to zero when they do recordings.
Mastering
now,
has gotten crazy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put on stuff that was just mastered 10 years ago and it's a good 5 notches lower on your car volume or whatever.
It's hot.
I've never understood why mastering has to be so loud. But
yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much.
I'm also not a real recording engineer. I'm mostly self-taught. I took one course, have a home studio guy. So
I do the home studio thing myself, but I got into it because my ultimate goal at some point, as I get older, is to record more of my own stuff where I don't need to go to a studio.
Right.
And I can do everything in-house and become more prolific and just release stuff that sounds good.
There's so many toys for studios. Have you seen this MIDI microphone thing that's out now?
What do you mean?
It's a microphone where it's just like a corded mic and it goes in MIDI though into your interface.
Yeah.
And you talk into it or sing into it and then you can change it to different instruments. So if you don't play an instrument, you can go, all right, I want the bass to go ba-doom, doom, 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 doom.
Seriously?
And then you put it and it changes to bass. It's like, it sounds like a bass tone. Or you can go, I want to do chords on a piano and go, and it'll do it's wild.
I was just watching a video.
Like, how does that even work? You don't even play an instrument. You can make a whole song. That's amazing.
There's just so much crazy stuff, man. Now you've got AI and you can do stem separations of songs.
Yep.
And
which does come in handy too as a church musician. When you can separate out stems because a lot of that stuff's so heavily produced that I'm trying to find a way to do it with a 4-piece band at a local church that doesn't have in-ears and laser light shows and expensive stuff. So it's helpful. But yeah, so much stuff now.
I just saw a video online. It was about a plug-in for recording. And you could do, I don't know how good it is, but the guy on the video said it's really fantastic. So you can listen, when somebody records a track, you will then take that track and go listen to your car to see what it sounds like in your car.
That's what I always do.
On your earbuds. Now there's a plug-in you can buy and it'll give you that same sound on your headphones in your studio. This is what it would sound like on a car stereo.
Really?
This is what it would sound like with earbuds. This is what it would sound like on a phone speaker.
If it works, that's helpful.
Oh my gosh.
Does it work?
Yeah. Apparently.
Because I whenever I'm doing a project, like I did if you've seen the Buffett and Beyond demo, I did the audio on that at my house. We emailed tracks back and forth with the drummer and stuff like that, but I put all that together and I feel like it's pretty good. But what were you just saying before that? I lost my train of thought.
Different plugins. There was for listening to headphones and
but I was going back and forth to the car for a solid 2 days.
Yeah.
I would airdrop it to my phone, run to the car, play it, come back, adjust it, come back, play it, come back, adjust it. Then after I got it right in the car, I put it on the Alexa surround sound in the house and played it in all the rooms in the house and then walked around. And I'm constantly doing that. So if that helps, if that works, that's a brilliant idea.
So much stuff, man.
Because that was one of the best things someone told me when I was young. They said, listen to your mixes in your car. And they said, that's where you listen to music the most.
Yeah.
Is in your car. Especially if you're a traveling around musician. You're listening to music in your car all the time. You know what it's supposed to sound like in your car.
Right.
So listen to it in your car.
Not even now. Kids are listening to stuff on earbuds and headphones.
I don't understand how you can wear earbuds and drive. Do you do that?
No.
I don't.
Because I have Bluetooth on my car.
But all these cars do now, right? I mean.
Yeah.
But you still see people with earbuds in driving around. It's like.
The cars must be broken or they're
you see like waiters at restaurants and stuff and they have one earbud in.
Yep.
These kids wear them all the time now. Like I don't know. I couldn't function if I had music in my ear all the time because all I'd want to do is focus on the music. My brain would immediately go to my ear and go, oh, what are we hearing?
Oh, even when I'm in the grocery store and I'm wearing earbuds while I'm listening to music and somebody's talking to me like, hold on. Yeah. Like I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm not listening to you.
Yeah.
It's a different world. Like even kids today coming up, listening to music, or watch the TV, they don't care. They'll watch a movie on their phone.
Yeah.
They're like, me, I'm like, I need a big screen TV. I want to enjoy the film. They're like, oh no, I want to watch it on my phone. I'm like, why?
Everything changes. And I guess we have to be less grouchy as we get older about it because we did things different than our predecessors as well. No, I'm not meaning you. I mean all the other old people, Matt, not us. All the older people not named Matt. That's who I'm talking about. But yeah, it's funny. Everything changed. I read an article about baseball the other day, and they were talking about starting pitching and how that's changed just in my lifetime.
Yes,
where the techniques have changed. You get that extra 4 or 5 miles per hour, but you also blow your arm out earlier than you used to in the old days because your technique isn't the same. They're not learning how to throw for innings. They're learning how to throw for power, and now starters are only going 4 or 5 innings before they're being taken out. Mm-hmm. You don't have Nolan Ryan's pitching 250 pitches in a game. It doesn't happen anymore.
Yep.
So it's just – and people were going back and forth about, well, this is how it should be, or it should be like it used to be, or, it should have been like the old days. And everything changes.
Yeah. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the better.
Yeah. But I'm anxious to see where music goes after this, because as somebody who 25 years ago, got the internet for the first time in my life when I was, younger.
Right.
I look at it now and go, how much has it changed just in the 25 years that the internet's been around? Gosh, what's it going to evolve to next? How does it evolve from here?
The amazing thing, I've talked to a few musicians about it. I'd be curious to get your thoughts, but just the industry in general, production is one thing and performing almost seems has stayed the same. Like you're going out and performing.
Yeah.
But the industry and making a living is different because of digital recording and Spotify.
Oh yeah.
So like I was talking to, I think me and Nathan Harris had talked about it last month, and just how everything has shifted. So I always say there was a golden age of recording music for musicians, which is about a 60-year span. And let's say it's from 1955 to 2005.
You're talking like LPs to CDs.
Yeah. And pre-internet.
Yeah.
And streaming. So all these musicians were able to make lots of money off a physical product.
Yep.
I'm curious to see what will happen, because before that, people didn't.
Yeah.
They were not making money off their physical. They had to make money from performing.
Right.
And even back, you go to the 1800s, these guys had people promoting them, kings and queens and princes and princesses.
Oh, yeah.
You had people who sold sheet music to amateur pianists to make a living.
Yeah.
There was no recordings.
Right.
So I'm curious today, where people are not making money from their actual recordings,
right,
because they sell the physical product, where is that going to lead down the road?
It's almost, in today's world, it's confusing, but it's almost like your recorded product isn't going to get you any money. Your recorded product is going to get you followers on platforms that'll pay you when you have certain amounts of followers and people that they can sell advertisements to. And that's a weird thing for me to even comprehend.
Yeah.
Like, you can write a hit song and not make any money off it, but then you have 2 million social media followers and you're making a killing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the actual music. That's just what got the people in it's a weird world.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see where it goes from here, cause streaming has changed the game. This is what I'm in my mind, I am so positive. To me, that's why all these old dog musicians are out touring again, because they're not making money.
Oh yeah. I think Joe Bonamassa said we're just t-shirt salesmen now.
Yeah. The merch makes more. Yeah. In fact, that's one of the first things the agency said with the Buffett project. They said, "Are you going to do merch?" I said, "We probably should." She said, "Yes, you probably should."
Yeah. I mean, if you could do something.
Yeah.
I mean,
but then you got the other side of the spectrum where, what does Taylor Swift make? $10 million every time she walks on stage or something like that?
Yeah, but Taylor Swift's a different animal. It is. She, at this point, is almost an old school artist, because she's been around more than a decade.
And I'll tell you, I say that and I don't hate on her at all.
Yeah.
I don't.
She's great.
I have never been a big fan of the people talking about that whole sellout image type thing. Man, I wish I had Chad Kroger's money. I wish I could crank out hits like he did for Nickelback.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I would trade in a heartbeat, because that's wonderful. I don't think that's a sellout thing at all. Or, Taylor with pop. So what? She's killing it. She's absolutely killing it.
But my curiosity
Just be happy
is,
for her.
Who's going to come along after her? And are there going to be artists that are as big? Because they're not making that money.
Right. She
and
came
the platforms
on
are different.
The cusp of when it was changing, so she already kind of got.
She developed a fan base. She is going to be a legacy artist when she's 50 and 60.
She'll be doing Vegas shows.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
because all those young girls who were tweens or teens or whatever when they got them, she's going to have them when they're moms with their daughters. We're going to see Taylor Swift because I saw her when such and such and such.
New Kids on the Block are selling out shows still.
Madonna's on tour. She's still touring.
It's all these 40-year-old women that are going out to see them. Yeah. Yeah, the legacy acts are actually probably doing better in certain
they probably do now. They did
than the
up
and coming. Yeah, when they were young.
Yeah, and that's the only bad thing for the younger artists is they can't get a lot of traction because these legacy artists are still around.
Well, the industry as a whole, just like every other industry in our culture, has made it more difficult for people at the bottom to get closer to the top. One of the things that chaps me to no end, and I understand why they do it. I get it. But that whole thing, what was it, about 10, 15 years ago where BMI and ASCAP started coming in and getting people in trouble for playing covers around town? Man, like you're going to try to get me to pay you money to cover an Eric Clapton song. You don't think Eric Clapton was covering songs when he was young, playing in bars?
Yeah.
Like, of course they were. That's how you do it.
But
now
that's
all
not
these
you.
guys want to get paid. All these guys, well, they're lawyers and publishing companies. They want to charge bars money now to have their music in it.
Right.
Well, they got started doing the same crap we were doing.
Right.
That's not right.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't have to pay. I mean, who's somebody ahead of that? They didn't have to pay Little Richard when the Beatles were covering his songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's how the business changed. I mean, as somebody who's put out a recording, not that I'm, sold millions of albums or anything, but I mean, if somebody was playing my music, in a place, I'm kind of want to get.
You think so?
I want to make some money.
I've never thought anything that I've written was good enough to really be played by anybody else, but I guess I would probably just be more flattered. I'm like, that's cool. They're covering my song.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be like.
You keep your 5 cents. It's okay. You can cover my song.
Not me, man. I'm that guy who picks up a penny on the floor.
Hey.
Like I work hard for my money. I want to make it. If I can make it, great.
But I guess maybe that's the part of me that's always been more of a musician than an artist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an artist. I'm a musician, I put my flair on things and I do things my own way, but I'm not an artist. I don't write things. I don't have deep,
You're
deep
working
thoughts
musician.
I write. Yeah, I'm just a musician,
Yeah.
You put something in front of me and say, learn to play this, and I'll play it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I never really cared as much about the artistic side of it. Like, I've never put anything out. There's stuff out there. I won't tell you to not Google me and find me on iTunes and Spotify and stuff, but it's been years and I'm not proud of any of it. I listen back now and I go, I should contact that publishing company and get them to take that down.
I'll keep it out there, man. It's nice to
out
see
there,
that
but I've never thought anything I put out was good enough to warrant getting paid for it. Let's put it that way. But I also have major self-confidence issues when it comes to my writing.
But we all do.
Is that everybody?
I think everybody.
Because you see some people and they're like, I wrote this song. I loved writing this song. They talk about the process and how it means so much to them and they're so proud of it. And whenever I write anything, I always think, are people going to think this sucks?
But that's an artist, man. I mean, you have to write something for yourself and put it out in the world. I think everybody on some level is going to struggle with imposter syndrome. Like my stuff is not good enough. And that's probably because you're not comparing yourself to me. You're comparing yourself to your idols who are these greats.
And I'm also not comparing myself to that person when they were 20 years old.
Yeah.
When I was writing that song I was writing, I'm comparing it to a polished John Mayer who's now had 5 albums out that have gone platinum.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense. I don't know. That's why most of the time, if I do ever write anything now, it's Christian music because that's what I'm passionate about in my life, and that's what comes out. I've tried to write some secular stuff, and I don't ever like it. Or I'll have lots of ideas that just never come to fruition. Yeah, they just don't.
I mean, it's either a working mentality to do it, like I got to sit down every day and I got to work on it, I got to hone this craft, Or, some people I only write for inspiration, I mean, I put out an EP I didn't realize it was almost 4 years ago. I'm like, I've got to put something else out. And I don't know what I'll do. There's some other stuff that I'm interested in doing. I don't know if I want to put out a rock song again. I've kind of gotten into ambient music and Middle Eastern music.
I'd
and
love
there's
to
some
hear
other
some of that
stuff I want
stuff
to do.
if you ever record it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Somebody just put out, speaking of, we were talking about local musicians and stuff earlier. Jason Hilliard maybe? Mm-hmm. He just put out a new EP called Cinco, I think. I saw it on Facebook. I'm meaning to check it out. So plug, if you're listening, go check out Jason Hilliard's new EP, Cinco.
Are you playing on it?
No, I'm not. I just dig his voice, and I haven't heard it yet, but I have a feeling I'm going to dig it because his style and his voice I just like from the videos I've seen him play. But yeah, it's just but that's everything. That's everything we talk about in our culture, right? If we all supported local, if you support local business, if local musicians support local musicians, that means a lot to me when you see a musician come to your show. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Like when I'm at a show and I
feel pressure.
Really?
I feel pressure. I'm like,
I do too sometimes.
Why are you here?
But like when I was playing a show in Charlotte when I'd first met Tara, and her and Jim come walking in. And it's like, that's a cool thing, like she had a night off from gigging and she decided to spend that night coming to see me play. Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm never off, so I don't ever get to do that.
And that's the crux of the issue.
It is.
I never get to see people. Or honestly, sometimes when I do have a night off, I don't want to go to a bar because I just spent the last weekend. I'm like, I want to stay home and just chill on the couch.
But it is nice. It's fun though too, because it just reminds you of things that you like. I went and saw her and Tara and Ray.
Yes, I've seen them.
202. And in Mooresville, and I went and saw them play because I had a night off, and my lady and I she's got 4 kids, she's a single mom, we hadn't had a date in forever, and I was like, you know what, I'm off, your kids are with your ex, Let's go out. So we went out and saw them, and it's the first time I'd been anywhere in at least probably a year and a half to even see music. And it got me fired up because I remember I was watching Ray play, he's a great player, and I'm going, I used to do that song. I totally forgot about that. Or he would do something. I would go, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Or that segue, the way they did that. Or I've always wanted to play that song acoustic, but I never thought it would go over well. And he changed the feel of it. And now I'm like, that's great. That's a great way to play that acoustic or whatever. So it's always fun too, because you
get ideas from other people.
You get ideas from other people.
Yeah.
And
then it also works the other way too.
But then I watched him play, and I was like, and this is why I don't usually play lead guitar.
Yep.
He starts shredding. I'm going, all right, yeah.
And that's it.
And my girlfriend's like, elbows me and goes, "Can you play like that?" No, I cannot play like that.
And that's okay, because you have to do Matt Stratford.
That's right.
You can't do,
That's all I'm capable of. So that's what I'm going to do, is be Matt Stratford.
You just do the best that you can being you. We're going to start wrapping things up, Matt. Okay. But I've got a question. It's now my new question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
So if you could think back, or if you met little Matt Stratford, are you looking back now to where you are in your music career? Did you think you would get this far? Did you think that this is what you're doing? Are you happy where things wound up? Are there things that you didn't get to do that you want to do? Where are you at in your career? Thinking back, as an older guy, not that you're that old, but looking back, compared to
I'm on the
20.
other side of the halfway point. Yeah. Let's put it that
way. Where are you at in your head?
I never, because of the way I got into music.
Yeah.
Just really quickly as let's, drink some beer and meet some chicks and play guitar and make some money. I never really thought it was going to be long term.
Right.
Before I dropped out of school and when I was in college, before I dropped out, I wanted to do recording. So I always thought maybe I'd open a studio down the road, or even just like a home project studio that was nicer,
Sure.
I never thought I'd be performing for a living. So that was not something I ever thought, I hope I get to a certain place, because I never imagined this is what I would be doing.
Right.
It has opened up more opportunities for me than I could have ever dreamed of. It has also caused me more stress and heartache and detriment to my health than I ever thought it would either. There was a time where we were talking about earlier, I don't know if we were on air yet or not, but we were talking about the amount of gigs in a year and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was before we started. But I look at stuff like that now, and it's just, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But caused a lot of health problems. I didn't take care of myself well. I had throat problems. Like, being a giggy musician has been a different life than I thought it would be.
Right.
For better or worse, some ways better, some ways worse. But it has given me opportunities. It has opened doors for me. It has made me able to meet amazing people and share an art form with those amazing people. But it's also caused a lot of stress. You know, as a musician, it does. And I'm sure it does in every other facet of, you know, working for a living, but it's a different kind of stress as a musician. But there were times where I was gigging so much that I was light sensitive during the day, and I had to always wear sunglasses because I was a bar musician who was playing till 2 a.m, 5-6 nights a week.
Dark. Yeah.
So I was in the dark all the time. You know, I developed a drinking problem. I had to combat that for a while because that's the first thing everyone thinks when they see a musician in a bar is that guy smokes weed and that guy drinks.
Probably.
They'll send you a shot and then they'll be like, hey, you know where I can get some weed? I'm like, why are you asking? Would you just walk up to any other random person and be like, do you know where to buy drugs? Why? Because I play the guitar.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's like people, you know, and it puts you in a rough spot. You know, when I tried to go dry and give up drinking, people are sending shots up to the stage and you have to find a way to say politely, no, I don't want this shot. And it gets weird. And it's just, there's a lot that's gone on with it. My mental health, you know, struggled a lot with it. It ruined my first marriage completely, being a performer. Being a spouse of a musician is something that, if you're a spouse of a musician out there, my hat's off to you. Because the spouse of a full-time musician is not an easy gig in its own. You know, I look back now, and I was talking to somebody who recently retired from music completely, and we were talking about this is why. He said, you know, I sat down and I talked to my wife, and I said, I've missed enough birthdays. I've missed enough holidays. Like, as a full-time performer for a living, I have to take whatever New Year's gig comes along.
Sure.
You know, especially if there's money attached to it. I can't just say no. But yeah, so I've missed tons of things. You know, I missed Little League games and chorus concerts for my kid. And
sure.
So, you know, and it's tough. It's tough. And when you're looking at I don't know how it is for you, but when you're looking at your calendar, when you're on the phone with somebody booking gigs, you're thinking, okay, that's the second Friday, the third Saturday. You're not thinking, that's my wife's birthday.
Yeah.
Unless you mark it on there real plain.
Sure.
You're just thinking, okay, that's 2 Fridays this month. And you're not thinking that. Or you're not thinking, oh, that's that chorus concert at the school. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you've contracted something and taken a deposit and now you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're an idiot and didn't look at your schedule. But you run the risk of those things, you know, and, you know, when I was home during the day with my second wife, when I was home during the day with my son all day, and then I would go off to work at night and she was working all day and she'd come home at night. We hardly ever saw each other.
Right.
Except for on the weekends. So just there's a lot of things I didn't know that were going to come with it. But if I had to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I'd give it a thumbs up for sure. It's been a heck of a ride.
Yeah.
I should be, if I'm being honest with myself, way further along as a player than I am. I have gotten complacent and lazy as I've gotten older because I play well enough to get the job done and have fun doing it. And I'm good enough to be innovative and still have fun. But then I watch other players and I go, gosh, I really should just buckle down and start shedding every day, you know, and get better. But it's been a great ride. I'm happy with where I am musically. I think I finally, over the last several years, have started to have more confidence in myself to be able to say, yes, I'm a professional musician. Yeah, because that's the thing too. There's a lot of self-doubt with people. It's an interesting thing because people say, oh, you play guitar. So-and-so's looking for a guitar player. I was like, well, what's the gig? Like, depends on what the gig is. There's a few players in town, Troy being one of them.
Yeah.
That you just go, I need a guitar player. And he'll go, okay. Doesn't matter what style it is, what the song list is. They can just do it. I ain't that.
Yeah.
I wish I was, but I'm not.
Yeah, but I don't know if Troy would be that guy who'd be sitting in the bar in a corner playing singing classic rock.
That's true.
Troy might be like, that's not my gig, man.
Yeah.
You know?
I always wished I was more well-rounded enough to do a lot more types of gigs. I've always sought after trying to be more well-rounded than great at one thing.
Right.
Like I never took the time to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to learn Eruption finally. I don't care to learn Eruption finally.
There you go. That's the thing, man.
Like, you know, I would rather, Jeff Jones, the guitar player I was talking about earlier, he gave me a good piece of advice. He said, if you can learn how to use the tricks you already have better,
right,
you don't need to learn as many new tricks.
There you go.
He's like, I'm at a point where I don't want to learn new stuff necessarily. I want to learn how to use what's in my arsenal better. And that stuck with me. So that's kind of where I am with that. I probably should sit down and practice more and shed more. And now I'm at a point where I'm having to stretch now because I got arthritis.
Oh.
But yeah, it's, so I'm pretty comfortable where I am musically. I probably should be further ahead than I am on a lot of things. But like you said, I think all of us feel that way in certain aspects, but it's been a dream come true in a lot of ways. It's been an interesting life that I could probably, like most musicians, we could probably write novels about our lives and the things we've been through.
I think that's one of the reasons I like doing this podcast is local musicians, your average local musician that you might find in your bar or your restaurant or playing your corporate or wedding event.
There's so much there.
Yeah, there is.
And people don't know.
It's not the person just Taylor Swift, on stage making millions of dollars. Yep. And unfortunately in our, in our society today, we equate your success with your money.
Oh yeah.
And that's success. But it's the simple fact that you were able to hash it out and go through all these things in your life.
Yeah.
And still come out on the other side and be successful. Dude, that's huge.
Success is
and
a
you're still here
term.
Playing.
I don't know how things have been in your life or anybody else that ends up listening to this, but I know early on my family was not supportive of doing this for a living. They borderline tried to have like interventions, like, we got to get Matt to get a real job. This music thing, he's thrown his life away. And here we are 20 some years later and I'm, but it's a different life.
Yeah.
For sure. And not everybody understands it.
Yeah.
But
you do make a lot of sacrifices.
You do.
There's a lot of stuff.
I do love music. I'm not in love with playing till 1 a.m. in bars anymore.
No.
That was a thrill when I was younger, seeing the girls dance and have a good time. And, when you singing, Friends in Low Places and everybody sings, oh, wait, you know what I mean? Like that was a thrill back then, but not so much now. But I still love music. I found that as I've gotten older, I've started intentionally listening to more music for pleasure. I stopped doing that for a while. I don't know if that happens to any other musicians, but I got so caught up in, I have to learn these songs for whatever project or whatever wedding or whatever church service is coming up. So I'm using the time in the car to just play these songs over and over again. And I have taken the last few years more time out to go, all right, I'm going to put that down because we've been working this Jimmy Buffett band since February of last year when we started rehearsals. We've been rehearsing for a full year.
Yeah.
So I've listened to a ton of it and I find myself now putting it away and going, I'm going to listen to that Amos Lee record that I haven't heard in a while, or whatever. So
I'm just trying to listen to different stuff too. Like I talked to Nathan about it last month and some other friends. And when I'm doing music now, when I go to work and I strap on a guitar, like that's work. I'm going to get paid.
Exactly.
But if I want my artistic stuff, I'm going to be mixing music. I'm going to be doing my oud. I'm going to be messing with ambient. I'm not so much concerned about being, this great guitar player anymore. I've gotten, and I don't mean to toot my own horn out, I'm a pretty decent guitar player.
Well, you get to a point where you're comfortable with, this is where I am.
Yeah.
I could push myself and get, this much better, but I'm already kind of at a place where I'm not going to get infinitely better now. This is where I am in life. And I'm kind of comfortable with it. I'll tell you the thing I have the most fun doing now is on the rare occasion I get to not be a guitar player. Cause I also play piano and drums.
There you go.
Not a great piano player, but drums is second, piano would be third. But I got to do a gig last year on drums for the first time in a long time, a whole 3-hour bar gig. It was awesome. So much fun. And at church, sometimes I'll get to jump on the piano and play, at church. I have more fun doing that than I do playing the guitar anymore.
There you go.
Cause it's a different challenge. It's a different arena and it just, it's fun.
That's how I feel about oud. It's new and exciting. It's something different. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can go into my room that has 16 guitars in it hanging from the walls and not feel inspired at all. And I can walk over to my $300, weighted keyboard and sit there and feel like I'm,
a Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. I'm having the time of my life. And there's thousands of dollars of equipment hanging around me that I'm not even interested in.
Yeah, I know. But there's just something about that. It's, you need something to spark you differently sometimes. And I think as you've been playing guitar for so long, it's not as exciting as it was, especially if you've gone through a journey with it. Sometimes it's coming back to other things musically.
Yeah.
That excites you about music,
Yeah.
Hearing a new band, playing a different instrument.
Absolutely.
So it's all these little things.
But sometimes seeing a band live for the first time can change things for you.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Like I had never got in, excuse me.
Yeah.
I never got into the whole Dave Matthews thing till I saw them live once. And I was like,
I still have to see him.
Have you not seen him live?
Never.
It'll change your opinion of that band for sure. The studio stuff, they are a 100% live band. You know, like you can hear the studio stuff, and we all heard it because they were huge in the 90s.
Sure.
It was on the radio all the time. Under the Table and Dreaming was everywhere, that album. But then you see them live and you're like, okay, this is awesome. This is, because their show is very much like they just play.
Yeah.
It's not set. It's not, I was watching an interview with their keyboard player recently. He played on Usher's Confessions tour. Mm-hmm. He's just a studio guy, professional for hire guy. He got involved with Dave Matthews Band. He was like, all right, so what do you guys want me to do? Some of these early tracks, a lot of them don't have any keys on them. And they're like, well, what do you hear? What do you want to do? Put your flavor on it. And then he's like, we go out there and we just do it differently every night. Someone takes a 3-minute solo over here, and then the next night it's only this for 30 seconds, and then it's just all over the place. And that's cool.
That is nice,
yeah,
man.
It's really neat because you never see the same show twice when you see those guys.
But that's the thing. You've got to see a band live.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unless they're just a studio creation like Steely Dan.
Right.
Like, that's the band that's what you want to see. When you go see a band live, man, it could be a different animal. And as a performing musician, you really appreciate all the imperfections that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
And you notice them and you laugh, and you're like, in my head, I always laugh and I'm like, oh, this just doesn't happen to me, huh?
Right.
There's somebody else who'll skip a verse.
Yep.
There's somebody else who messes up that part,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think I saw a video one time of Kirk Hammett on stage with Metallica.
He's the first
live,
person I thought of.
And he messed something up.
He's messed up. There's so many videos about him out there messing up. But that's a beautiful thing. Like, he wrote it and he still messes it up.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
when I see that, I'm like, oh gosh, it's because we get so used to this recording, this perfection. It's not, and you forget there's a human creating it.
And that's what we've been doing the last 3 months with the Buffett Project. We went back and we said, okay, we learned these songs. They sound perfect like the studio and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, there's no energy. There's no nothing. So we started listening to all the live cuts.
Right.
And going, okay, how do we infuse these songs and make them what they are live and what they, the way they're better live. But yeah, it's interesting to see the live versus and the mistakes. And sometimes you see a band that is a great studio band and is terrible live.
Yep.
Always a disappointment.
I saw recently, this is the second time I've seen them. They come to Charlotte, this Prague band called The Pineapple Thief. Man, I saw them first at Amos's. First at the Neighborhood Theater, and they were fantastic. And I saw them at the Underground, and I'd never been to the Underground before. Wow. What a good live band.
Awesome.
What a good live band. When you see a good band play live, you get excited.
I will tell you though, a lot of the legacy groups, they still sound great.
Oh yeah.
Dude Brothers can pull it out and their harmonies sound just about perfect.
I'll do you one better. If you go online and you look at some of those legacy groups and you watch live performances from their heyday, you realize that why they're a legacy group.
Oh. Okay.
Like, I saw recently, I was watching Kiss do this performance of She on Don Kushner's rock concert or something like that. And it had to be maybe 74, something like that. Wow.
Yeah.
You're just like, these guys are freaking amazing back then. The way they're moving on stage, their action, the song. Like, this is why these guys are where they are. We're so used to seeing them as 60, 65-year-old men playing, and you're like, oh, at 20 years old, at 25, these guys were on fire.
Yeah.
So,
first person that just came to mind when you said that was Michael McDonald for me. Huge Michael McDonald fan. His voice is so good. But if you want to see something crazy, him and a bunch of other pros that are like that level, they all play at a church on every Sunday in Nashville.
Wow.
And they live stream their service. You want to talk about a killer church band?
You have to send me a link to that.
It's being led by Michael McDonald. That's a crazy good church band.
Send me a link, dude.
I'll try to find one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt, as we start to wrap things up, how do we get in touch with Matt Stratford? If we want to book Matt solo, we want to book Chunky Daddy, or we want to get Buffett and Beyond?
Buffett and Beyond we'll have on the website, buffettandbeyond.net. We couldn't get a .com because Warren Buffett had a book written about him that was called Buffett and Beyond. So we weren't able to get the .com. We had to settle for the .net. But if you go to the .net, there'll be a contact form there that goes directly to the agency we're going to be working with.
Gotcha.
If you want to contact me for anything directly, chunkydaddy.com, that contact form goes directly to my email.
Perfect.
That or all the socials. I'm just at Matt Stratford Music.
Fantastic. Matt, thanks for coming in. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it.
All right, brother. Have a great day.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for listening to episode 85 of the Queen City Music Podcast, and I hope you'll go back and check out past episodes. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. As always, if you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out our local partners, Records on the Wall at rexonthewall.com, Reporting from 20XX at reportingfrom20xx.wordpress.com, Queen City Live at Instagram.com/Queen City Live Music, and Charlotte New Music at charlottenewmusic.org. And our latest and newest partner, Blacker the Berry Lemonade at btblemonade.com. Until next month, get out there and support the local Charlotte music scene by hearing some of the talented artists who call our city home.